This is all I got. This is all I got. Don't take my baby, okay? I've been away from my baby for 2 months. I just want my baby. And no one's listening because no one's in the courtroom. I'm not doing anything illegal. But I don't want nobody. Oh my God, am I doing something illegal by doing this video, or am I protected by the First Right Amendment or the amendment? Don't take my baby. I'm at $13,000 a month. What more do you want from me? Oh my God. Oh.
Because I know somewhere deep down in my heart, I still love you.
Just watch this stream. Listen. If you get something out of it, you will. If you don't, you don't. But do not send a damn dime. Don't send anything. Anyway, what shocked me a little bit is Tariq Nasheed. Well, not shocked me. These men are going out of their way to make sure that a black man is murdered. But they don't do that same thing to a white man. DJ Academics, everybody got a problem with him.
This is all I got. This is all I got. Don't take my baby, okay? I've been away from my baby for 2 months. I just want my baby. And no one's listening because no one's in the courtroom. I'm not doing anything illegal. But I don't want nobody. Oh my God, am I doing something illegal by doing this video, or am I protected by the First Right Amendment or the amendment? Don't take my baby. I'm at $13,000 a month. What more do you want from me? Oh my God. Oh.
Because I know somewhere deep down in my heart, I still love you.
Just watch this stream. Listen. If you get something out of it, you will. If you don't, you don't. But do not send a damn dime. Don't send anything. Anyway, what shocked me a little bit is Tariq Nasheed. Well, not shocked me. These men are going out of their way to make sure that a black man is murdered. But they don't do that same thing to a white man. Now, DJ Academics, everybody got a problem with him.
This is all I got. This is all I got. Don't take my baby, okay? I've been away from my baby for 2 months. I just want my baby. And no one's listening because no one's in the courtroom. I'm not doing anything illegal. But I don't want nobody. Oh my God, am I doing something illegal by doing this video, or am I protected by the First Right Amendment or the amendment? Don't take my baby. I'm at $13,000 a month. What more do you want from me?
First of all, I'm gonna say this. I'm saying sorry, Dre. Sorry, Dre. Sorry, Dre. This is about to go real left. Sorry, Dre. First of all, y'all don't even know what the y'all talking about because y'all talking about the NBA. Everybody got guaranteed contracts, and it's false. They do. Searching this, and I'm telling you, it's the truth. No, they don't. Not everybody that's on the NBA roster have a guaranteed.
There's two-way contracts. There's two-way contracts,
no, it's not.
And then there's the top dog. There's the top dog.
No, it's not. There's 4 guys on the NBA team that got guaranteed contracts, and everybody else can be cut today and don't got nothing.
And don't have nan dime.
Look it up. It's not guaranteed.
Fair use. Man, that last clip right there. Yeah, before I get copyrighted. But basically, I showed a collection of very interested clips. Who's already tuning in? Hey, look, we've got our early birds here. How you doing, Raya? Thanks for tuning in to my solo channel. You found it, damn it. yeah. So I posted some videos, just showing examples basically of Western men really, being overly emotional. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being emotional, but just to an extent, it's very different in contrast to the, other men in society. Hey, Vincent, what's up? Tuning in or just spreading yourself in every stream? Hey, I'm on campus right now, about to go home. That's cool. I'll be on for a while. This is definitely a marathon stream, so I'll definitely have to, I will be taking my time on this. And giving up people opportunities to come in. You can disagree with me if you want, but this is the topic I wanted to address because, I've been on different panels. I've had these discussions and I noticed a pattern, I'm trying to figure people out. And so I hope everyone's Friday is going well. It's evening here in the UK. And this is gonna be winter's here now, you see, so people need to kind of figure out what they're doing with themselves. So I've had so many conversations being on my other podcast, Not Your Average Joe, and touching on subjects that might trigger some folks, which is fine. I want to delve into this, right? Everyone who's seen my past clips, I'm gonna repeat some of them just to get people understanding why I would title this stream, Why Are Black Men in the West More Emotional or Too Emotional? Black men in particular. Why do I say that? I just believe that if you compare black men in the Western world, me included, because I was born and bred in a Western country, versus an African man or black men who come from third world countries, they tend to behave differently. And if you put 2 of each in the same room, the way we react to things are very different. People are very much triggered if they grew up in the Western world where microaggressions are so important to them, versus African men or even Afro South American men who grew up in poverty and they rely on the smallest things to find happiness, and poverty is their main concern. While over here, microaggressions and certain forms of profiling is can be spoken on, but it's just the way we react to things. It's very clear that the general population has a contrast, and when it comes to men in general, I just think we just have a role to play. I don't understand why we want to change the dynamics of what is kind of socially engineered into us based on biology. It's not something special or out of the ordinary to have men with roles and have women with roles. And in terms of emotion, there's a reason why emotion's important, but there's a stronger reason why men in general have to control their emotions, whether it is some form of even trauma. Look, I believe there are times when men have to cry. The death of a loved one, parent, child, partner, a very close friend, versus just any random things. Why does it matter? Because in contrast to other men in society, other men in the rest of the world, there are certain things we place as a priority, as of importance, right? Let's say someone who wants to get a job. We think of, how am I going to feed myself? How am I going to feed my family? I believe the contrast is different if you grew up in the UK, in Canada, in America, where it's, if I start this job, how many black people are in the room with me? Would I feel comfortable being a black person in a white-dominated company? It's like, that is not important. That should not be important. And the reason why I bring this up is when I speak to people who grew up in a third world country that come here, they appreciate every moment, every stage they reach in their life. If it's to start university, if it's to start work, if it's to live in a nice neighborhood, they appreciate it. They don't overinvest in other things that it just doesn't matter. So I use that as an example, working in a sort of environment where you're a minority. I mean, let's start with the UK, because that's where I'm from. So for those of you who aren't from the UK, we have an experience that is probably unique to other black people in like Canada or America. The reason why I want to distinguish that is because of our population size. When it comes to black people, ethnic people in general, there's under about 18% of people who are ethnic minorities in the UK. That's a lot smaller than like a place in America, like everyone knows. Black people only make up just over 4%. If not under. If we look at the new census that will be coming out next year, that would show our numbers, but we only make up 4%. In fact, that's even reaching too far. We make up 3.5% of the UK population. But for some reason, black British people that grew up in the UK have a problem with comprehending that they could just be the one black person in a room. Why are you uncomfortable with that? You know where you are. And why is it such a concern? And the only reason why I say this is because we have all these conversations on panels and make sure we need to talk about representation. To me, when I hear that, I think of women. Women want to see representation in companies, more women in that position to encourage them to pursue those careers. And it makes perfect sense. But when I hear men speak that way, it's almost as if you sound defeated right now. You don't want to put yourself in a position of a man. Essentially, we talk about the patriarch and how the patriarch benefits men. But for some reason, a group of men feel like they can't take advantage of that because they're black men. We live in a modern society where, yes, we tackled racism throughout the 20th century with broken strides. Yes, there could be racism here and there when it comes to who's in positions of power and who can abuse that power by neglecting you or marginalizing you because you're black, but you know for a fact there's not some type of systemic agenda. You live here, people are racing to be here, crossing the English Channel, buying up illegal papers just to be here for a reason, because there are opportunities. And the more we speak on, the more you study into it, you realize that you're in a better position than your forefathers. If you're an African like me, born and bred in the UK, wherever, and your parents will tell you and lecture you like how they grew up. I had to walk 200 miles to get to school. I had to climb with no sandals, with no shoes. And you hear these stories, and a lot of us actually kind of internalize that experience and understand that the position we're in right now is lucky. It's amazing. It's fascinating. I just want to bring this up because it's important to see where we've gone so far and how long we have left. In fact, we're not even too far away. We're meant to be taking advantage of this type of sweet moment. Why are black men in the West complaining about not being treated like white men in the West? Do you understand how power works in terms of collecting it and receiving it and giving it away, how it completely works and how you can take advantage when it's necessary? There was a book, I keep on forgetting the name. Is it Guns, Steel, and something? Oh, I got the name searched up on my Google search already. Guns, Germs, and Steel. I need to still read it, but I've definitely taken context into it. It's a very much important literature in terms of guns, germs, and steel. Let me let me place an image of it. It would really provide an understanding of, you know, who we are as people, and then how we see in individuals based on race. You know, this is I devote this channel to discussing this subject, while I have other channels doing other stuff. People who know my other channels, you know, keep it to yourself. But I spread my opinions and views far and wide for a reason. I think it's important to have a multitude of ideas and to be careful on different platforms, because you can't trust anyone out here. Especially, you know, when you have a professional background and you just love to talk, but you just don't want to be known like that, you know. You speak on things that are important. So this is the book, if you all can see. Guns, Germs, and Steel is by Jared Diamond. The Fate of Human Societies, and it shows images of different ethnic groups and how power works, conquer and conquest, and so on. But Guns, Germs, and Steel, The Fate of Human Societies, a 1997 transdisciplinary non-fiction book by Jared Diamond. In 1998, Guns, Germs, and Steel won the Pottsall Prize for General Non-Fiction. It has basically, it maps out an understanding and an explanation of how different groups thrived or met their demise. The book attempts to explain why Euro-Asian and North African civilizations have survived and conquered. So Euro-Asian, it would include whole of Europe, North Africa meaning the Arabs and the Middle Easterns, and then parts of West Asia, such as the Mongols and the Kazakhstan, the Soviets, and all of that. Yeah, while arguing against the idea that Eurasian hegemony means the political, economic, or military predominance of one state over the others, is due to any form of Eurasian intellectual, moral, or inherent genetic superiority. The idea of this genetic superiority is in place so heavily because it's definitely brainwashing from those who conquered, but the truth and the reality is really down in this book. It's very important that people read into it. I'm definitely going to read into it and break it down into pieces, because I've been in so many panels where they just come up with ideas on how history and how we think and our views and so on, you know? Yeah, right. So you've seen that book, right? You've heard about it. Yeah, I've heard it so many times. I actually need to read it completely. I've just read excerpts of it, and it breaks down how, okay, we define people based on race and culture, and we don't realize that when we blame ourselves for, oh, how come we ended up where we are now, poverty here, you know, poverty in Africa, or poverty in South America or South Asia, and we just assume now it's because we're inherently unable to compete with others. That's a problem. That's a problem when people think like that. It's forming a negative feedback loop on you. If you think that you're in the position you're in because of your background and not the fact that it's just the lack of opportunity in front of you. It's just not your group's time to take over everything. For some reason, we just assume there's no competing. It's not a genetic trait. I had this deep, strong debate with on a channel, on a different panel with Why It Matters, and how they believe, hey, what's up, Why It Matters? What's up? I was about to talk about it now. Remember the panel we had? It was actually on the religious aspect of Christianity in Africa, and then we got to that point where I was very confused. Like I was like, wait a minute, what are we saying here? Are we saying that black people in general, aren't able to reach a certain strides because we are genetically programmed to not compete with the rest of the world? And then I really want this to promote this literature because it explains everything to an extent that we understand that we are all equal. And it's like maybe that term, that phrase itself is so cliche that people aren't going to accept it. When I say we are all equal, when people have said, I see no color, we're all the same, it means nothing to people for some reason. I don't know how else to defend it, because there's truth to it. Yes, we deviate in certain cases. So I only wanted to touch on that a little bit, and then go on the main topic. What were you gonna say, Why It Matters? I remember that panel. You were squabbling some of the arguments that were made. Straw manning. You're saying now straw man. Okay, we can have that discussion soon. When you come up on the panel, you can explain that. And essentially, my problem was that, I wasn't prepared for that conversation, but I'm prepared like when we have it as a main topic. I was like, whoa, because a lot of the comments that the other guy was saying, S.A. Peel, shout out to him, he made it sound as if it was chronic. And to me, I think it's based on his context, because as a Nigerian, someone of Nigerian descent compared to a South African, if you know South Africans' history, they have this thing where everything is black and white. Him growing up in a society where the whites controlled everything, and you can visibly see it. It's beyond colonialism. We all experience colonialism in Africa, but when it's in your face and where they control your livelihood, that's when you create this sort of chronic idea of your existence. While coming from a Nigerian experience, like even though I was born in the UK, I've visited Nigeria a lot, I've lived there, seeing just black faces, essentially. In Nigeria, there's barely any white people. So when we see white people, it could be in an embassy or airport, and we just assume, they're just here as expats. But white people in power, it's non-existent. Because at the end of the day, when it came to colonialism, Nigeria wasn't significant in British control. So they didn't have their complete hands on the Nigerian state, and the same with Ghana. So when it came to reaching independence, they were actually ready to just get rid of their responsibility and just gave it away to those who were already in power. So the northern Nigerians have gained the most power for the last 40 years. I don't want to ramble on, but what I'm trying to say is that there's a huge difference between Nigerians and South Africans in mentality as well, because we did not have that African influence and dominance over us. In fact, we weren't, if they knew the amount of resources Nigeria had back in the, mid, 1930s, they would have definitely tried to find a way to control the region. But because it was like a sleeping giant, oil struck in the 60s, money was booming. So it's like black people were able to have control over it, but it's it's still struggling, but it's still the largest economy for a reason, and it had nothing to do with Europe. And the reason why I bring that up is that's my mentality. I never thought of it as if the white man was distinctly different to us. That's why they gained so much power. I didn't see it that way. I just saw it as they had the opportunity. They were lucky in South Africa. They weren't lucky in other parts. what are you saying? Hey, bro, facts, the Duke. A lot of what was discussed was from our experience. Yes. So that perspective alone, I was trying to create an outreach. Like, look, okay, take away from how we think of things, and let's see maybe the facts and figures and history has said about us. And what people do is that we can grab onto stats that maybe adhere to some type of view, but we haven't seen the whole picture. So the full picture is, I'm showing you this here. This book, this literature is a non-fiction analysis on human civilization. It was written by a white man. Okay, he explained how white Asians and those who have kind of controlled society in the last 500 years don't have an advantage because they're inherently better than those who they oppressed. It just happened, the fact that he described the geographical differences. He described how specific time and events occurred in order for Western Europe to succeed in this time, and also for like East Asia, like Japan and China, to have survived colonialism faster than other parts. So when people say, when I was saying like, we've only had 60 years to climb out of colonialism, people will say, well, what about Singapore? What about Korea? They've done so well. They've done it. But it's like, you don't even know the context in which they came out of colonialism. And when you use Korea, for example, there's a North and South Korea. North Korea is the worst country to use as an example. They're in deterioration. There's hunger. There's thirst. There's death. And in Japan as well, they're very lucky. If you read into particular countries that are exceptions to the rule when it comes to colonialism, you would see why they survived. So this book alone explains huge amounts of things that we talk about on these panels on race. And for some reason, I feel like I might have to break it down in different videos in order to, explain it even further. But as we go on, I'll return to why I think black men in the West are a bit too emotional. I would say they've reached a point where there's a loss of understanding of what we're meant to do to kind of gain, power and influence on our own, rather than begging for it. But I always open for my ideas to evolve and change. My views change even when we step into these panels, but to an extent, I collect more information. Also, I want to make a stream next week or even this weekend discussing the UK in particular when it comes to representation in the media. I remember we had a discussion where someone was saying we're underrepresented in the media in the UK, and actually there's stats to prove that we are overrepresented. Just like I was saying in the panel, there's views that actually supports and shows data on the fact that there are more BAME, quote unquote BAME, and black in specifically in British media. It's like they're more obsessed seeing us in their sponsorships, in their new TV show. There's always gonna be a main black character now. It used to be the token, but now it's like, we're gonna change this character into a black person to show how inclusive we are. It's almost forced to the extent that, is this what we want? Is this what we want to show? That we're like another Pride Month advocate for blackness. You know how we always have to switch up a character like Superman. When they now made him bi, is that here we go again, another agenda? Is that we're seeing interracial adverts? The black man's always been swapped with the white man now. That's the perception now in this era. I don't think it's a good look. I mean, for us as well, but it's too forced. But anyway, back to the agenda at hand, right? Why are black men in the West emotional compared to other men? Too emotional. To me, as I explained in the beginning, when you compare black people in America, Canada, UK, Europe, to black people from third world countries, there's a level of appreciation of your life and your achievements that seems to differ, right? So, for example, having a free education or opportunities that people in Africa don't have. People who remember growing up hearing your parents saying, "Finish your food." There's a kid in Africa who's starving right now. You have something on your plate. Don't waste it. And there's this sort of pampering that we have already, that a lot of our parents and elders will try and pull out of us, like, you don't know what you're doing with your life if you think that being in the UK is so hard. I understand mental health. I understand how our own personal and individual experiences would shape how we think, but it's important to definitely see the contrast in our livelihood than others. Like I said, how in America, for example, black men are so focused on microaggression, while someone in Kenya is like, how am I going to feed my family tomorrow? Not saying that poverty doesn't exist in the West. There are people out here who struggle the same way, but there's a reach to even get to that point. I posted some videos in the intro. I'm going to post it again for those who are listening, and just to remind everyone, like, where you live. This is the type of expression we have amongst our men. And just picture how Africans would look at these people. How would they react to these type of expressions, this imagery, basically?
This is all I got. This is all I got. Don't take my baby, okay? I've been away from my baby for 2 months. I just want my baby. And no one's listening because no one's in the courtroom. I'm not doing anything illegal. But I don't want nobody. Oh my God, am I doing something illegal by doing this video, or am I protected by the First Right Amendment or the amendment? Don't take my baby. I'm at $13,000 a month. What more do you want from me? Oh my God. Oh.
Yeah. I was like, look, he's going through his thing, man. He's going through his thing. I get it. He has his own issues with his child and family. But again, what's he doing? He's recording it. He's showing the world, like, I'm going through this shit right now. What we see in here. I remember this story. What are the main reasons? So why do you think? Yes, so I definitely want to delve into that reason. I just wanted people to understand, where am I coming from? Why is this? Why is this an issue? Thank you so much, White Man. I'll definitely pull it down very soon. Let me drop in it. Well, thanks for calling me out. So why? So in the West, we have, let me pick specific countries if we want to do that. Even in the UK and the US. The UK and US, there's certain patterns that are similar in terms of black people who live and grew up in those places. The male figure, everyone has heard it. It's almost a rhetoric we've heard enough, okay? On Fox News, on all these channels, explaining why there's so much issues in the black community in the West specifically. Why do I want to touch on the West? Because there's very distinct difference compared to black people in third world country. We're overly emotional when there are less men, less of the patriarch, quote unquote, in a community. So if you are, the main people in your family are, your great grandmother, your grandmother, your mother, and you see more of that, you might have men in the picture, uncles there and here and there, but they also have the lack of that male leadership in their time as well. You see that a combination of that in contrast to other groups, that would lead to it. I'm not saying that more women around leads to more emotions. Maybe I'm saying that, but in general, there's a difference when the way I view other men, of my other male friends who aren't black. There's a way we address certain things like racism and discrimination that is very distinct to a lot of black people in the UK and in the US. I'm going to touch on it again. I'll give an example in a minute, just checking on. Yeah, no one needs to know your struggles, especially as a man. Hey, look, in order to even express yourself, you might go to your boys, your friends, even your family, just to kind of, let them know what you're going through. But that guy is media personality, is a celebrity, singer, actor. His issue was he felt the need to tell, social media in that moment. And I don't know what he was thinking, but looking back at that would not be a good example. Like, oh, look, the court system is affecting us. But to be honest, people are looking at that and laughing out loud because it's like, what are you doing? It will be fair enough to raise awareness to what men go through, especially the wealthier you are. He's a wealthy man. He's paying that much money because he's a wealthy man. And then explaining it maybe after the fact. Don't show your tears. We know the shit you might be going through, but maybe go tell us after the fact. Show us to our faces, like, look, this is what I'm going through, this and that, this and that. But with the outrage, the ranting, it's all a show to people. I mean, am I saying men shouldn't cry in front of the public? I don't think we're not saying that. In the beginning, I said there are main what's the term? There are several times when it's appropriate for men to cry. It's even bad to say it like that. It's almost as if I'm trying to police masculinity. But there are particular times in a man's life where tears are like necessary to give people a climb, to a support for you, right? So when you lose a loved one, when you lose a life in your life, your friends, whoever, and or when everything just seems like shit to you and you tear up, you're breaking down in that moment. But you notice that when people go through that phase in their life, they are not having a camera in front of them, taking basically a selfie and tearing up. Just picture it, guys. Please picture it. Have you ever thought of maybe I'm going through shit right now, and I'm gonna record myself going through that shit to show the world? Like, I've never thought in my mind that when I'm going through so much shit that I'm gonna let the world know, let social media know. Like, with tears, I could write a post, everyone pray for me, I'm going through hard times right now, but thanks for the support. But to record it, I think that's only particular in this part of the world, because I can't picture like an African, an African responding like this. I'm like, look, hey, I can't picture or visualize an Afro-Brazilian or a black person in the islands, a Haitian, going through after the earthquake and poverty and just turmoil, tearing up on camera like this on their cell phone, just to prove that, look, this is the shit I'm going through. People know you're going through shit, if you're in that position. But that shit is like, every moment counts to them, every day counts to them. Their days are numbered because they know that, okay, shit, I've survived yesterday, I'm here today, I'm gonna make it. But this is the stuff we see. I'm being very general here, but before I go on, yeah, what are you saying? Ebonics is hard to understand. Who? Hey, okay, a little racist in the middle. I didn't know I would be attracting that, but I guess that's what you get for typing up titles like mine. Right? I'm thinking, I'm from the UK. That's impressive if I can, speak in that, dialect. Raya, hence the reverse role, men being feminine and women being masculine. Hey, look, it's pretty much clear that there's definitely a pattern going on where if the men are so emotional and feminine and submissive to an extent, women are taking that role. It seems it's similar to a species I know of. It's like a fish species where there's a lack of men in the ocean bed, that the women transform into men in order to balance out the population disparity. So it's like those women, those female of that species would transform into men in order to break up, to mitigate those differences. I'm gonna find it now. If give me a moment, but it explains a lot. It explains a lot about what's going on today. But just if anyone could just check like a fish species where females turn into males, or is it like a crab species? Yes, that's. Oh, I think we're going to touch on something really interesting. Okay, it's called what's it called? Sequential hermaphrodites. So yeah, hermaphrodite. The term, everyone knows that term. You know, when a person, very rare breed, turn into, two different reproductive system in some humans, which is unfortunate because they have to decide what to do with themselves. But yeah, so I just found a clip of the fish. It's very important to make this distinction. I want people to understand what's going on in the specific community. Okay, the majority of sequential hermaphrodites are known as protogynous, Greek for female first. Ooh, that's a very iconic term, female first. Okay, they switch from female to male. This includes Cobudae and other species. So other fish species have this too. Sex switching, and the purpose really is to solve the imbalances in their gene pool. Okay, a scorecard is always built into hierarchy with a female fish at the top. When she dies, the most dominant male changes sex and takes her place. Okay, so another species where the matriarch leads the pack, and the men will switch over to become female sex in order to take her position. So in a way, men may imitate women because they only saw a female, like a matriarch, leading the family, leading the home. So in their perspective, right, it's like this is the role of a leader. That's very interesting, and we're just using examples of a different fish, like a species that do it, and there's a dynamic there as well. White man says the male seahorses give birth. I mean, they don't give birth. They carry the fertilized eggs of the female. So they kind of hold they bear the seed, but they're still the males. And yeah, that's a very unique role for some species. So, I won't say it counts, but in a way they play a very important role. Just like how emperor penguins hold on to the egg while the mother goes off to to get the feed, and so the male eggs carry the eggs during the winter in order to care for it. So yeah, different species have different gender roles, if we want to say that in that context. But when you notice certain matriarchies in different species, you notice that the men take maybe a lower position, but in order for them to elevate themselves to leadership, they had to behave like a female. So like that fish species, a male can actually turn into a female species in order to take that role. So again, yeah, so when it comes to that, when I talk about community where the matriarch kind of leads it because of the systemic issues that's going on for history in their culture, we would notice that. So a lot of men will believe that expressing their emotions, being overly pampered in a way, always needing to feel victimized. That's what I've noticed about black men in the West. It's unfortunate for me to say it because I am one of them. I'm not an emotional man, but I am a Western black man. So it's like, am I calling out my own experience? No, I'm saying the majority of those that the people I talk to, it seems as if they're so driven by, okay, we talk on race, we talk on discrimination very well. But I look at other groups of men. I'm not saying they go through the same issues, but let's say the Chinese man may go through as much insult in certain parts of the world, and they just soldier on. That's just what I've seen. The migrant Asian has always soldiered on regardless. I want to talk on this very touchy subject because I know some people will disagree, but in the UK, when it comes to other ethnic groups like the Indians and the Chinese and the Pakistani and the Bangladeshi people, they went through as much discrimination as we did the Africans and Caribbeans in the UK. The only major difference, because look, we're all Commonwealth, we all have a Commonwealth past, but the only major difference is the history behind that, us being from Africa being extremely colonized because of the proximity to Europe, and then the transatlantic slave trade, and then what came after that. And then you look at the Asians, I don't think there's anything different from their experience when we moved to the UK, the first wave of the Windrush community, and then the Pakistani, Indian, Bangladeshi communities that moved here too. The racism was the same. Brown people, black people were all dealt with the same xenophobia, yet the way we responded to things was different. That's fine, okay, but then 21st century experience, no excuse in this case, because we make excuses for example, for criminals. We make excuses for crimes that may affect us more because we always want to root it back to something happened 300 years ago. I'm not undermining what the past was. All I'm saying is that the way we react to things is very much feminine, okay? But I would definitely want to argue. It would help if I discuss it with someone who may disagree, because then I would definitely relay on to other things too. Raya says this holds true for Latino men who grew up in single mother households. You know what? I've heard that before. I can't remember who mentioned it, but Rolo Tomasi was having a conversation with Myron. They were discussing different cultures of men in the West, okay? Because there is a difference, and so he mentioned how Latino men are, to an extent, also not feminine, but simper. They simp for women, too. Like, there's a position that people take. If you come from a lower socioeconomic background, of course, you're more likely to be raised by a single mother. So you behave a certain way. It's just the way we react to, like, politics and social issues, it seems different when it comes to black Western men, is that we don't want to take control of our own narrative. We're waiting for others to take it for us, and it's getting tiring. The other reason why I posted this stream was to talk on what's his name, Tommy Sotomayor. Everyone who's been around the YouTube streets would know him very well. He's a I think he's a big troll, but he's a huge influencer in certain ethnic platforms, okay? And Tommy apparently quit YouTube after he felt bombarded by other bigger YouTubers, like in the black manosphere, the community. And yeah, he felt discriminated against. But I felt he's always been the one type to enjoy the attention. So I'm very, interested in the fact, it's like, why is he choosing to quit now? But let's listen to, I guess, how he thinks.
Just watch this stream. Listen, if you get something out of it, you will. If you don't, you don't. But do not send a damn dime. Don't send anything. Anyway, what shocked me a little bit is Tariq Nasheed. Well, not shocked me. These men are going out of their way to make sure that a black man is murdered. But they don't do that same thing to a white man. Now, DJ Academics, everybody got a problem with him.
Yeah.
Just watch.
So yeah, apparently he quit YouTube because he just felt like he was being attacked. I felt this guy's been attacked enough times. I think that kind of drove his it drove his fame. I thought he generated hate for money. So I was very surprised that he chose to quit YouTube. That's why I used him as a thumbnail, because I just felt like he's always been an emotional tirade, but the fact that he was so popular, made me think that it must resonate with a lot of people, the way people think like that. Yeah, I wanted to bring this up. If anyone wants to discuss it, just click the panel for an invite. But overall, I use that example as well. I'm going to post another clip with a different form. It's not always about tears and emotion and sensitivity. Actually, it's another form of sensitivity, but aggression. When you see a group of men who kind of are very particular about a subject, they seem to be, extremely offended or controlling. This is an example I wanted to post, like NFL players basically discussing racism and how no, they weren't discussing racism. Sorry, they were discussing salary disparities, right? And it may continue that way. I'm gonna post that video in a minute, but I'm gonna invite our friend Wyatt Mattis. How you doing, bro? If you can,
Yeah, doing very well.
listen
Can
to
you hear
me.
me?
Yes, got the sound check right. It's all good.
Cool, cool. Oh, have you dropped your cash app? I've been meaning to bless you.
Oh, thank you so much. I was
Yeah, I always
might
love
as
your
well.
content. I don't always
Yeah,
agree with everything, but I do
yeah.
love your content. You do give me a lot of talking points, and I've got so many things on my list. But no. I do love your content, so it's all love, man. It's all love.
Oh man, I love to hear that,
You
bro.
know how
Thank
we
you
do.
so much. Yeah. I'm addicted to your panels. That's the thing. So it's like I like
No,
talking on
yeah.
these things.
I
Yeah,
love talking these
it's
things. I always love because you're very intelligent. You're obviously very studied, very in history. So
thank you.
no, and I do get emotional about these kind of topics. So
Right,
yeah,
right. I always like to drive that sort of narrative, like, oh, let's speak on this even more. Let's dig. So it drives me to read up on stuff that I never
ditto,
really thought
ditto,
about. You
ditto.
know, so most definitely, hey, I'll be happy if you use the not your average Joe podcast. We have the Cash App set up there, but this is my solo channel. But thank you for even thinking about contributing, bro. But yeah,
Yeah, man,
as
you
we
time
go
into
on,
time, and you've obviously
yeah,
researched those. It's people don't really understand when they're listening in, and they don't really appreciate like what goes into doing these things and the stress it can really be. So
right,
I get it.
right.
I mean, I get it. It's not as easy. It's not as stress free as you think it is. It's not.
Yes, indeed, it is not. But yeah, that conversation, just to end it, from the last panel, like I left feeling a bit annoyed that I wish I covered it better, because it was as if I wasn't prepared for that, where it was segueing into like
Well,
the
it didn't.
beginning with the religion stuff. I was like, oh, this is great, but then when it led to like, okay, how black people behave, I was like, whoa, okay. It was different. So what were you
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
say?
No, I hear you, and I think yeah, I think it was just a case of again, SA Red probably took it that more corner because that
Yeah,
took me for a bit of a loop because I wasn't really on that whole. I was on about how it affects us as a people,
yeah,
how we see
yeah.
it, but not more a case of we're uniquely or doing
Comparisons.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I get you. I get you.
Yeah. So, what do you think about this topic on why I think black men in the West are overly emotional compared to other groups of men? I believe that black men in third world countries have a tougher experience. Yet they have a more of a thicker skin. Like this includes in Africa, South America. The islands. Those who fight to get to these countries are more inclined to be happy with where they get to once they're here, versus us who grew up here. We seem to be so focused on very little things, like microaggressions, as they will call it. And yeah, I've always wondered that. What do you think? What could it be? Is it that we're just ignorant, or we just want to experience life like the white man? Is there a need to fight for that? But yeah, tell me your input. I might be wrong.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely different energy there, just purely because I mean the obvious, as you've touched on it, the lifestyle's different. So obviously, being in a first world nation, you're going to have first world problems, and that's how it starts. And I suppose for somebody who has to fight just to eat, we're going to look down as, why are you guys stressing over this when I have to worry about clothes on my back, getting clean water. We don't have to worry about like clean water really, maybe recycled, but we don't have to worry about that kind of things. So there's a different energy because the appreciation factor is different. So yeah, I definitely do think we get emotional about things which you're thinking you just leave it alone. But I think that's just because we're in a first world. You look at even probably if you look at white people in the UK compared to white people in maybe Eastern Europe or something, I bet they will say, you guys complain about the silliest things when you talk about gender wars or something silly like that, some stupid pronouns. No, call me this. Yeah. You must be thinking, it's definitely stems of people really don't have the type of problems that other people have. So yeah, I get that. I do get it. I will say this though. I will say this. What I've realized is other groups have a lot of emotions just for different things. I think it's just different trigger points. So let me use the South Asians as an example. Now, let's not South Asian. Let's say Muslims. They will kill you for when I mean disrespecting the Prophet, just for depicting the Prophet Muhammad, just for talking about him. I don't know if you've ever been in school with a bunch of Muslims, normally South Asian descent, and I'm telling you, if you slightly disrespect them, they are willing to kill you. I mean, I don't know if you've ever experienced it in your life before, but I've been in a school where these South Asians were about to like pretty much kill this white boy over saying the P word and also sometimes disrespecting their religion. So there is a stage with me where, do you know what, I think we look at ourselves differently sometimes, and even I'm guilty of this. But then I'm like, hold on, I don't know if you've ever seen the Asians, how they act when it comes to their things and what they hold most dear. I think that's what it is. What it is that they hold most dear, they're ready to kill for it, and they really will. I mean, look at Charlie Hebdo in Paris. He got the gunman went in and pretty much killed all these people. You look at in Yorkshire, where they had this guy had to go in police hiding just for showing a cartoon. You're like, a cartoon? I was like, what? Whereas we get emotional, but I don't think we've ever been that over emotional. I've never seen a situation where, you know, oh no, you're gonna have to hide. A white boy called someone the N-word, you're gonna have to hide all this kind of other stuff. I've never seen that where the guy's at threat of his life. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, you know what? It's funny you brought that up as a comparison. I think it's a good comparison. It actually highlights the differences in that type of emotion, like you said. I would say that when it comes to South Asian or even Middle Eastern, Muslim community, is that they fall on a code when it comes to their emotions. Is driven by some type of what's the term, like holy war, what's the term again? Yeah, it's pretty much a jihad. There's an agenda there. It's like everything is based on something that they're leading towards. They're trying to Islamize everywhere. Okay, so for Muslims listening here, you understand. Like, I went to a school where, predominantly Muslim. Like, if there was Eid, the school would have to just close down because there's barely anyone in the school. there's like 3 of us in class each, or people just pretended to be Muslim at one point. So it's like that's how influenced my school was. It wasn't a Muslim school, but it was predominantly South Asian. So I saw that, and it was just easier for them to talk on things than if they were a minority because they were in a predominantly, ethnic school. But with that, it's like there's an agenda. I feel like, for example, when we look at how black people react to the BLM and certain things that were racial, we don't have an agenda. It's like, we're very emotional. It's very all over the place and scattered, and nothing's really changed. It's just like, there's an agenda there, compared to like the civil rights movement of the 50s. It was a driven, emotional wave of change. While the South Asians, the Muslims, they're more on that same level, but it's like a long term, we're gonna press down, everything has to be halal, everything is distinctly driven by an agenda, while black people is just like, oh, we're all over the place. And my thing is that I know there are reasons for it, and it's not just because we're like hereditarily or genetically different. That's when you came in and we spoke on that book, was that I know for a fact it's not that black men are just built differently. It's just that the social dynamics that surrounds us in the West compared to like an African or someone who grew up in the favelas of Brazil, there's just a mindset that's completely different. They see themselves as living in poverty, not because they're black, but because they just flipping live in poverty, and they can climb out of it if they move to the West or do whatever they could to achieve. While hair is like we stick on factors like the white man will keep us down. I get it. But you've noticed that when we're in panels and there are people who grew up in Africa, like the Black Commander, or even Ari Redpill and the others, they will always be like, what are you guys talking about? It shouldn't matter. Black people need to take accountability. That mindset is what they have because of their environment. It's like, fuck that. Mind my language. We need money, we need capital first before we start talking about how I'm treated in the workplace. It's like, if you don't like the job, leave and find another one, or what are you raising awareness for? That's how they think. And I went from sounding very Western, which is raise awareness, to mental health, which is a good thing, but when you talk about microaggressions, I was pretty much into that a lot, and now I'm waving myself closer towards how my parents think. It's like, what the hell does that mean? Are you going to school for work, or are you going to school to start another civil rights movement? It's like pick your struggle, you know. So that's what I'm saying when it comes to black men, because I think that's a different direction, men and women. I feel men lead a community. So when it comes to men, I think we are pretty much playing a feminine role in the West. We want to feel victimized in a way. I think we acknowledge our history, but we have to learn to soldier on. That's my approach. But then I'm looking at, why are we the way we are if it's not genetic? What do you think about that?
You know, I pretty much agree with what you just said there. I mean, I'm a person who, I say this: if I've complained about something 3 times, I'd either change the situation. I, like I said, for a job, move jobs or apply for jobs or do something. But if you complain about something 3 times and you don't make a change, you pretty much like the situation that you're in, and you just want to do it just to complain sake. Because I hear many people who just at their jobs, oh, I hate this job. I'm like, so why have you left yet? Oh, and they come up with all kinds of excuses. I'm like, if you hate something that much, you make a route, you have a plan in order to get out of it. It may take a little bit of time, don't get me wrong, depending on what it is. However, you make plans and provisions, and depending how bad it is, you just like forget it, just tear up the rule book. So no, I've always been on that, and I do agree. I do think there's a situation where we do like to complain, and I think I'll say this in defense. Like if you take the US civil rights and things like that nature, I think a lot of the complaints have kind of worked in a way where laws have changed. Again, let's look at BLM. So much noise is created. Now look at the aftermath. You talked about how we're now overrepresented in the media. Now you could say because we complain so much, whereas beforehand we weren't complaining, we weren't being represented. Now our voices are being heard. So there's this. I think there's a bit of a confirmation bias there, where if you look historically, we've had to march, complain, if you like, scream, yell, and shout in front of maybe the stereotypical the man, the white man, or the white woman, in order to get where we need to get to here. So then the question then becomes, if that's what we've had to do to get here, why change tact? Now you could argue how good we are in terms of where we are now, but I suppose to somebody looking in, you'd be like, well, hold on a second, we had to fight to get here by doing these things. This is what we did. We marched. This is what we do. You see what I mean? So maybe there's an element there where you think to yourself, well, that could be the reason why in the West we are the way that we are, because we've had to scream and shout. You know what I mean? We weren't going to take it lying down. And that's kind of, sometimes I'm like, maybe that's the reason why we do the things that there's no plan, if you like, but that the plan is to scream and yell like a child. You know what I mean? So we almost get treated like a child. We get placated, but that seemed to work.
Mate, it's like you segue into what my thoughts were, because like every time we speak on things, it's like we're bouncing off and we're reaching an element of like some major point, right? So I would say this, when it came to media representation, the data was sort of spanning maybe two decades in terms of UK media, because when we spoke on that in the panel, I felt that we weren't looking at things contextually based on our percentage, right? So if we, let's say, grew up in London, we see a bunch of black people, because we're literally in specific cities alone. Once you leave the cities, well, it's pasty white, okay? And I had to learn that later on in my life, like, this is a white country, I forgot. So the same people who maybe complain there wasn't representation forget how many of us exist in a way. And then it also makes there's an understanding where, of course, if you're a city kid, you're more likely to pursue certain roles where media like opportunities are. Like, for example, if you grew up in Hollywood and there's a lot of black people in Hollywood, you're more likely to end up in the Hollywood industry, something like that. So that's how I saw UK media representation. We are actually saturated there before even these little movements popped up. I'll send the link later and I'll make a video on this anyway. But when it came to you saying that, yeah, movements like these actually garnered some type of change, I agree. But I'm saying, where does it end? Because we had the civil rights movement, the huge wave of that spread across other countries like America, Canada, UK. We had our own small changes too. But it's like, where do we end that emotional tirade? I think it's being capitalized on. Like, I followed BLM from 2012. I know how they played the same game. And it's almost like you discussed on your topic on Christianity is how we're being used in a way. Dr. Umar Johnson, I followed Dr. Umar Johnson since 2013. And he's been preaching about building a school
I know.
for 8 years, and he knows how to play the crowds. He's like a preacher, to be honest. Like, he knows how to play and garner this sort of
Oh, he pulls
emotional.
the emotion.
Yeah,
Okay, emotional there.
it's amazing, and it works because black people are so infatuated by him. And when you listen carefully, he's saying a load of nothings because, like, his agenda is, yes, African pro-Africanist, movement, but who is he connected to? What type of organization is he a part of? No, he's playing the game very well, and he will continue to do so because we're a very emotional group in the West, and we don't even ask for results. And then those who ask for results, like his detractors, like his arch enemies, like I remember Tariq Nasheed had a fit with him.
You know, Lennon on him.
He's not. I've heard of his name.
His
what
channel
does he do?
is dedicated to talk about Dr. Umar Johnson and that, and his
yeah?
failures as a man. I'm telling you, every live stream for the past 2-3 years at least have been talking about his failure, school, and everything like that.
Yes.
Lennon, I'll put it in the back chat.
Yeah, and guess what? His fame doesn't end, because at one point I was trying to expose Umar Johnson on Twitter with my friends who were really in support of him when the memes started popping off. And I was like, this guy's a scammer. He doesn't really care. And then people were just responding like, well, he's a funny guy and he kind of speaks the truth, But the truth he speaks is basically on very much passionate things. And because, black men in the West are very much in tune with their inner star sign. Or I'm trying to even bastardize the term more, is that we're so moved by it. So when he speaks on the snow bunny crisis, for example, I troll a lot on the chats. Like, I don't even
I know you.
Yeah, and the way he places the very huge importance on how men must stick to their own, and this is important or else you lose your roots. And it's like his point is interesting, but it's not really a productive thing. Like, what is it going to do to even build your school when you make that a big thing, interracial marriage and stuff? Like, a black man who is very wealthy, for example, that billionaire, I keep on forgetting his name, married to a white woman. Yes, and he donated to what school was that? He's donated to a few historically black universities in HBCUs, and he's garnering a lot of support from the black community. But for some reason, Umar is so focused on the color of his partner, like it's such an important thing. When
I was going to have
bringing in capital.
Yeah, I was going to have a live stream about that sometimes, about pro-black dating now. Is it faith versus works? What is it? You know what I mean?
Please do
something like that, just to discuss that, because you're right. Ultimately, he's done more than Dr. Umar Johnson has done. If you look at it, in the actual tangible benefits, obviously you can discuss, because people say Dr. Umar Johnson woke me up, and he, you could argue that to the cows come home. You can't really measure that, can you? But in terms of capital, no question.
Right.
Just want to touch on something a little bit. I don't want to go too off topic, but I'm hoping I'm straying on here in regards to why we're so emotional, because you mentioned something which is very strong in a lot of westernized black communities. Charismatic. We like charisma, which you have to have a certain level of emotional instability to be charismatic. And that doesn't play through just from like a pastoral standpoint. I mean, when I was growing up, there's a lot of charismatic preachers, and it was, oh my day, it was amazing. But then also it plays through into like dating life. And you think yourself, women like guys who are charismatic, they like guys who are charming. There's an element of emotional instability that pulls women. So is it a case of, when it comes to us as a people, and again, when it comes to emotional, it's not just about that. It could be about toxic masculinity. We're hyper aggressive. That's something that women like. We're hyper masculine. That's kind of a tag that black men have, which is why if you talk to other races of women, for example, you mentioned the Chinese and how they get on with things, but Chinese women don't like their men, for what I've heard, because they are too placid. They're docile. I heard even Indian men, oh, you guys are just so, nerdy, geek, you stayed. So I think part of the reason is because, I don't know if it's stereotyping, where the roots come from, whatever it is, but right now there's an element where that actually plays to an advantage in that realm, but also plays to a disadvantage in some other realms. Sometimes it's like, how do you balance that? Do you understand what I mean? Or where I'm coming from?
No, I definitely get what you mean. In fact, when you mentioned emotion, he definitely not trying to take away from aggression as well. Like men who can't control their aggression
Yeah,
have that's an example of someone who is out of control, who overly emotional because they don't have that set of discipline, right? And you mentioned other groups of men. There's this sort of stereotype where they're not the sort of the well balanced type of gentleman that women want and so on, but you would notice that is also a trait that comes from being maybe a defeated man. If you feel like, oh, you can't outcompete other men because of so and so, you behave a certain way. So if black men, for example, are playing that role too, even though I think stacks are in favor of us in a way, like certain things where when it comes to dating, we call our advantages a problem. Like, oh my gosh, this myth of the I don't want to say word for word, or we're being fetishized. Like in my mind, when I think of a person being fetishized, they're being victimized because that's I think of feminine women being fetishized is a thing. But when a man is being fetishized, like what type of man is complaining about being wanted for sex? In a way, it's like, I'm not trying to say that men should be proud of it. It's more like you shouldn't feel attacked. If someone, like growing up, me, like from 19 to, throughout my early 20s, if I was in school and I noticed a group of women are into me because of how I look, it's like, duh, I would take advantage of that. But for some reason, but for some reason in our community, we're making it sound like it's part of our demise. Like, no, you're a man. You're meant to take it almost like a compliment, but it's not going to affect you. Just don't take that person seriously. That's what I would say to that type of example, right? While other men will complain like they're disadvantaged in the dating scene. Yeah. So they would wish to be in our position, but for some reason we've turned it into us being a victim when it comes to that. So if a white or Asian woman is into us, first of all, it's a physical attraction, okay, but now, they don't even care about us inside.
But you know what it is though, the Duke? I hear what you're saying, but this is where it's like a catch-22, because if like a white woman likes a black guy, you already stereotyping like she wants a road black man. You know what I mean? She doesn't want necessarily that kind of black guy. So you're almost in a position where you have to try and again act out in a stereotype. So you then become more emotional. You again become less controlled of your aggression. So I hear what you're saying, where it's like you shouldn't be worried about that. But then you almost like you have to play up to a stereotype in certain aspects. And even with your own women, it's like, oh, I thought you'd be like this, or oh, well, I hate using this word. You're not black enough, or that kind of, all these kind of things happen to play through. And it's like a wormhole or navigation where if you're in a black dominated nation, or nation that has the same hue as you, you're not going to necessarily have all those. I may be wrong, navigational things that you have to pull with. So that's why sometimes are we emotional? Because that's kind of the conundrum that we're faced to operate in. I don't know.
I would say also it's more like a self-inflictment. Like with that you made a great point there. That's a good example. When it comes to that, I would say certain specific things that other men will take advantage of, we want it to sound as if we're the ones taking advantage. It's like play tit for tat. Like there's some things that shouldn't bother you as much, but you've made it into a subject. You know what I mean? That's what I see a lot on social media. It's like we are begging for sympathy, even where it's not needed. Before I go on, let me read the comments and you can chip in. What's up, bro? From Brum, how you doing, man? Evening. You say he F Smith. Who is F Smith? That billionaire, or is it
Robert F. Smith? Yeah.
Robert F. Smith, yes, there we go, has given $100 million to pay of deaths for Black Americans. I remember the students of Morehouse University, he paid, I think, for 3-year groups of those who graduated from Morehouse University. With that one decision, he has positively impacted generations of Black folks. Question is, how do you measure pro-Black? Q. I'm not sure what you meant, but hold on.
I think that was in regards to our conversation about, interracial dating, faith versus works, and I think
let's have that soon.
Yeah.
And then a synonym of fetishization is adoration. Hey, look, I don't even want to make it obvious, but as men, in a way, like, we shouldn't imitate how women feel about certain subjects because it's basically different. That's how I see it. Well, I use that example, but there are other things too.
Yeah, it's like when women complain about, oh, I'm being sexually objectified. I'm like, well, no offense, but
Yeah.
don't you? That's what you should be.
That's
in
what
a
men
way.
want.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It is what it is, isn't it? I mean, women want to
Yeah.
be beautiful. They want to be seen as beautiful. That's always been a standard.
Yeah.
Whereas men are seen as, again, strong, providers, protectors, that kind of stuff. So that's how it's always been, isn't it?
Indeed. So in a way, is that what black men here? Is that what we're doing in the UK? Do we want to be seen as strong providers, or are we pushing for equal, equal opportunity in the dating scene? So a man, when we talk, what's funny? When people speak on, oh, so what do you bring to the table? I think there's two different conversations that being had when it comes to like relationships and taking a woman seriously. A lot of men think that they have to interview a woman in a way for her to be a part of his life. And when I say what you bring to the table, I think there's two conversations being had. Men who say what do you bring to the table, there's one group of men who think that a woman has to work or has to be on his equal setting for him to take her seriously, even though that's unrealistic to me. While other men will say a woman just has to be beautiful, feminine, they say submissive, or she doesn't even have to have a job or something. Certain men would take that on. I think that a lot of men in the West take on the first man's approach, is that they want a woman who is strong and independent. I mean, for a long time, women thought that was a compliment, but I saw a lot on social media, black women saying, we're tired of being called strong and independent. We want to feel safe.
That was a new one for me when I heard that, because I've heard that we're strong, independent. Beyonce, single ladies, Beyonce, independent, Destiny's Child, independent woman. That was a new one for me.
Yeah. So when that wave was a thing, women are now fed up of their own narrative. It's like, no, we actually want to be coddled. So our men are in support of us being strong and independent. We men were like praising it. Like, yes, I want a strong. And no, you don't want you want a stable woman beside you, but you don't want her to be, if she's independent of you, she doesn't need you, or you want to be with her. So you're dependent on a woman because you want company. A woman also can depend on you because she wants company too. It's not about having her being the rock. Like, you don't lean on a woman only if it's like a tragedy or something. But when it comes to that, it's like that's the narrative men took. It's like, oh, this is what our women want. They want to be independent of us. But you see how that flips? Because women are tired of hearing that now from us. When we start saying it, it's like, no, we don't want that. Now we want to divest because you want too much from us. I know.
And you're right. It's almost like black men have basically heard what you've been saying and said, okay, be independent. And now, and I think it's because of the realization of what it actually entails to be independent. And we talk about accountability, and I will say this: accountability means when things fuck up, you are to blame ultimately, regardless of like in a company. When Facebook had that issue about obviously the reporting and the news and all that fake news stuff, even though Mark Zuckerberg wasn't the guy probably doing all the algorithms to make it do what it do, he was the one brought up into the Senate. He was the one brought up to the EU to say, this is your face. You are the accountable face of this product, Facebook. You know what I mean? Whether he liked it or not, whether he did anything or not. So that's what I think a part of it is, because they realize, this gig ain't easy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah.
On 100%, because when you talk about the leader of a company, the CEO, the head, the alpha of the pack, that's his position to take. He has to take responsibility of whatever his smaller powers did. So that's an example I think you always bring up on these topics, is that why are men complaining about women when women are the ones who are meant to lead, right? It's like, all we hear is black men complaining. And I always feel the need to sort of defend men in your conversation. You hear me saying like, so we're just giving excuses then for men who want to go their own way or who want to be MGTOW. But I'm like, I want to agree with him right now, but I'm trying to take the stance that men just need to either take it or leave it. So if you're with a woman who doesn't want you to lead or support your values, then don't be with her. Move on. But then that almost sounds as if I'm saying men quit on women. They are not ready to listen to you. In a way, it's like the same thing.
Yeah.
But what came first? I think maybe in the West, black men became more complacent because they felt that, oh, we want to promote equality between our man and the man and the woman, but it goes against our nature when it comes to family and building a community, because men are in general leading the family. But if he's not in the picture and he just assumes like, hey, look, this is the new world, do as what you please, and women are complaining about it, women aren't dressing to look pretty for us anymore, or who aren't trying to be feminine, because why need you when we live in a society when women can lead the home? So it's like men are complaining that, oh my gosh, we've been kicked out of the house, oh my gosh, we're doing this, doing that. I think this generation of men are those who grew up in that environment, so who didn't have a father, and they're trying to recover whatever they should have had. And so they complain about the women that actually led the family. So it's like, who is there to blame if the men aren't in the picture, but the women are actually leading the community? And they're complaining that those leaders, who are female, the matriarch, are to blame. It's like, oh my gosh, there's a truth to that. And also, like, nah, because the man has to be in the picture.
It's a chicken and egg. These conversations are always like a chicken and egg. It's like, what came first? Or
yes,
what caused this? Or do you blame the man who's not in the picture or the woman who is in the picture? Even though, you know what I mean? Yeah. So sometimes I agree. It comes back and forth. And then sometimes women overdo it, men overdo it. And I know why, because you're trying to bring the balance back, because you're seeing these women like, everything's the guy's fault. I'm like, no, that's BS. The guy's like, everything's the woman's fault. That's BS. It's like this. I think what they're trying to do is to balance it out by being one extreme to another. And you brought up Tommy Sotomayor. He's a classic example where,
oh Lord,
you brought up emotional men. And I want to talk about him because he is like a walking contradiction in my mind. Ever since I saw him all them years ago, because he talks about single mothers and everything. And you could argue he's a product of, he's the stereotypical product of an emotional male. He drives and feeds off drama and he's always been antagonistic. The thing is, I don't know why he can complain about not getting support or people attacking him. He attacks black women. He attacks everyone and everything. So he is the pin-up child of an emotional male who you can tell has not had a father in his life. He even admits it, but it's just like, oh, dude, even at certain ages, even I didn't have a present father like that. I'm like, come on, you're a man. Just calm, just cool. But he can't like control himself. But when he brought him up, I was like, thank you, because, and your thumbnail as well. He is the epitome of what you're talking about, where Western black males are so over emotional. Now, part of it could be his stick, but I think most of it is actually who he is. So, and now he's institutionalized. So the problem as well is, how do you unpick it? How do you now unpick these men who are just completely emotionally unstable? That's another one I'd love to hear your viewpoint on.
Yeah, he's a perfect example, and the reason is I definitely was around YouTube. I wasn't like following anyone, but I watched his growth, and when it came down to how he viewed things, it definitely was his past. Having his absentee father, mother, basically the responsible parent, and so whatever disparities is on her. So, and at the same time, he could break the cycle, and essentially he's doing that by being in his daughter's life. He started his career on YouTube after his divorce with his wife, and he probably tried to fix things, and he wanted a family. That's the man I felt he wanted to be, and he's just lashed out what people call red pill rage, outrage, but it was more black centered than all these other manosphere people. But he created that lane for a lot of black men on YouTube, and they praise him for that. But then he's very emotional because he has a lot of unsolved issues. So when it came to all the sticks he's been in, he doesn't know how to partner or network with other men. He's very unstable. So it's like he can't even lead something he basically started. So people drug him down. He actually helped Tariq climb up a little bit, but now Tariq stabbed him in the back. All these other people were like fed up. And then this was the nail in the coffin when that big NBA player who's blowing up
Kwame
now,
Brown.
Yeah, he was like, I'm not even associated with Tommy Sotomayor, even though grew up watching him. So he was like, And then now Tommy is just fed up. Kevin Samuels actually called out to him a few years ago, but because Kevin's big now, cut him off. So it's like everyone's turned against him, as he says. He is not even a leader in amongst men. So when he even talks on women, you're not in that position. So yeah, that's why I used him. It's just great to see these examples kind of play out, and all this gender war scenario. That's why you see my content. If you look back, I'm just talking on men basically. I don't really have time to. It's not that I'm avoiding controversy, but I just feel there's no need for me to focus on women. I think men in general have to take their fate to their own hands. Yes, you grew up in some type of environment, but you're awake to this now. Don't focus on the society that you want to leave behind. Don't focus on the community. I felt like Tommy was ready to leave the community, but he's staying there, dwelling in that pain for some reason. And for those who are listening, when I refer to the community, it's just not the black community in general, in the ADOS community, more like the people who are kind of falling apart, and we see that happening a lot on social media. Bro from Brum says, white man's bro, it all depends of course on type of white women men go for. I could argue that a non-stereotypical black man could feel more comfortable around white women. It sounds like me. The Duke, I think that we black men have adopted victimhood talking point. Yeah, indeed, talking points. Yeah, I hear you, man. You're literally speaking the gospel right now. I'm on uncle babysitting duties. Oh, nice, man. We'll rejoin live later on. See you soon. I will try and stay on for a bit long. So it's a Friday evening. I could have been out, but I'm like, hey, let me chill. What's up, Raya? No lie. Yes. Down by the lake, Kwame Brown's Tammy reference. Oh, do I know this song? Do you know this song, White Maz?
I think I do. I know the Tammy stuff because obviously that's what Kwame Brown always calls Tommy Tammy. But I think so.
Because
it's so true though, because on that it's like he's falling out with pretty much every single, definitely male, every male. I don't know about any female he collaborated with, but he falls out with everyone. And at some point, he will try and defend himself like he's in the right, he's in the right, he's in the right. And you're like, well, there's a common denominator here, and it seems to be you. So you're thinking to yourself, how have you not been able to adjust, evolve, mature in life? That's the key thing, isn't it? We all have our issues, but there's a level of maturity that comes, I assume, with age, and especially having a child. This is another thing which I've always been told, that when you have a child, it changes you. You mature. You think differently because you have different responsibilities. Particularly a girl. And he has a girl. So I thought to myself, of all things, I thought he would have a more calm approach, a different perspective on things, but he's still the same person. Now he will say, well, I'm keeping it real, but then it's like, no, you're actually not maturing. That's the problem. You're supposed to mature. Men are supposed to mature like fine wine. That's what, again, part of the phrases, but these guys are, like milk out here. And it's not cool being, I think it's like almost 50, but still acting like sometimes I don't want to disrespect 20-year-olds, but 20-year-olds, even younger than that. It's crazy.
Bro, do you know what fuels the fire? Because I had a deep thought on this, like why he thinks the way he does. But everyone has is allowed to have a voice on social media, and that's what I think garners a different perspective when it comes to platforms like this. So yeah, people have these type of views, and I guess they're allowed to express it, which is good. But it's those viewers, those listeners that are fueling that sort of popularity. So if he's garnering a huge audience, that means a lot of men think like him or are entertained by his narrative. So I think it's both, but a lot more men like Tommy Sotomayor are out there. Mostly, the American men who feel the way he does, and they maybe grew up the same way he did, and so they're so interested and so like into him. Well, other men may have spoke on a different perspective like we do, but we're not. That's not interesting to us. That doesn't resonate with us. So rather than focus even on the main person who is leading this agenda, those who are eating this up, and it's like there's more of them by the day. Tommy has had the same following since 2012, 2011, and they're not backing down. They don't even care about the flaws because they see themselves in him. So when you see all these other platforms, like even like the opposite of Tommy Sotomayor, Cynthia G, you would think she's saying the most craziest things, but Like, we've heard people who are in support of her regardless. So it's like they resonate with her message. It's like, wow, okay, this is how groups think. And if that's the case in the Western world, like with black people, we have a problem. If we're so intrigued by these people, when it's not even entertainment, it's more like, oh, we follow them like faithfully, then that's where it is, because it's driven emotionally.
This is perfect for
Right?
the live stream, man, for this and pro black stuff, because you touched on something so poignant about
Right.
how we seem to operate. We don't care about the messenger, we care about the message. And it's almost like, because like you said, we resonate with the message and they preach what we want them to say. So I think people, I don't know, I could be lying, but I think followers, they wouldn't pretty much care what Tommy or what Cynthia G does, as long as they keep preaching the same message. However, I guarantee if they started to change their message, their followers would unsubscribe quicker. However, they wouldn't unsubscribe for, let's say, Sotomayor was seen with maybe an underage girl, or Cynthia G was impregnated by Robert Birkins, which is meant to be a rumor. I don't know if it's true. They don't care about all the actions, but they care what they say. It's crazy. It's like, hold on a second. Surely you have to match your words by your actions for it to sort of hold sway with a messenger, but they don't care like that. It's crazy. They care more about what they say. Same with Dr. Umar Johnson. They don't care. A lot of them, that his school has not really been built. It's done nothing in 8-10 years. Why? Because they preach a message that they can resonate with and that they want to listen to. Forget everything else. And it's crazy.
Mate, it's feeding whatever agenda they're definitely garnered. I think we've covered it. We've covered it all, because it's like, what's going on? What's going on in this society if people think the way we do? And we did, that narrative is gonna stay strong, but for how long? Because if you notice, it's beef that fuels the fire. It's beef that fuels the fame. You get more views and so and so. But that's not how you build a business. That's not how you build like some type of following in a way. But for some reason, social media has created that, right?
You know what? We love the drama though. I think in life, like I'm gonna watch I've watched a couple of TV shows, and we like the drama, we like the rivalries, we always like a show that has a protagonist and antagonist. It's like our paradigms in our mind cannot operate if there's not a good guy and a bad guy. That's why superhero films are so good. There always has to be that enemy. I think we internalize it. I believe, if I could probably, I'm not generalizing here, but I think we as a group in the West, particularly, we generalize these types of situation where there has to be a good guy, there has to be a bad guy. That's why, obviously, when you're touching on what you said in our live stream about it's not as black and white as because we're black, we're the enemy to the white man, and the vice versa. We don't like nuances, a lot of us in our paradigms. It has to be set. Who's the enemy? Who's the good guy? And obviously, that depending on your viewpoint. But we seem to love that and hold on to it, and it all plays that in all these aspects. That's why I think we are the way we are. When it comes to these things, we have to see it in sort of black and white terms.
Oh, I'm going to spin it into another. We're going to speak on another topic linked to this. But before I do, what's up, Raya? Great dialogue. Will sub to why it matters. Yes. Bring it in. This is what we need. More support, right? Successful men share and teach others their success. He's done the complete opposite. Therefore, he is the predicament he's in. Yes. It's almost like it's self-infliction, and there's another term for it, like he's imploding, but it's held for so long. I didn't expect him to hold this long, but but what I was going to touch on even more is that when it comes to sort of political movements and agendas, right, a lot of these social media influencers that, their major audiences on YouTube have created movements. So I actually followed Tariq Nasheed for a bit a few years ago, where he actually used to do tours in different countries. He came to London once. I was meant to visit his seminar. He's banned from the UK because what he did for several years was he went from teaching male improvement years ago, Mackin, the Matt Lessons Radio. I used to listen to that for entertainment, bro. And it was guys to improve their confidence and date as they please. But then now it's, of course, more political, and maybe he knew that the audience was building up to that. There's this trend, this movement going on. But instead of focusing on, I guess, the history documentaries he's been dropping and, them explaining white supremacy and the powers that be, he's focused more on antagonizing different groups.
Do you know what? Yeah. Sorry to cut you, bro, but on that, because
Yeah.
I remember Tariq, he was actually more pro-black. He even did a documentary on the Haitian Revolution, which I've been meaning to watch, but because it's Tariq Nasheed produced, I'm not watching that stuff because I don't like him now. But now he's jumped on that ADOS thing, which I don't have a problem with, but he's antagonizing other blacks. He like hates other black ethnicities for like no apparent reason. I'm like, hold on a second. You may have an issue maybe because in your lifetime or whatever, you can draw from your experiences, but I'm like, he's gone from being pro-black, talking about white supremacy. He talked about the Haitian Revolution. He did that whole Hidden Colors, 4 documentaries that he did. He was over in the UK promoting it as well. I remember that kind of stuff. To now, he pretty much hates not just white men, but black ethnic groups who, I'm like, what? So, he's definitely either on some sort of, he understands the trends and he's going to just try and market whatever he can market. But he's definitely a guy who, again, I don't trust him as far as I can see him, let alone throw him.
Bro, he was probably the only person I was watching on YouTube when it comes to commentary because I found it entertaining. So I followed the demise of his behavior in terms of how it went from being pro-black, promoting African influences, of the diaspora, and then leading on to, okay, we hate what the white man has done, white supremacy, we're going to speak on it. He will go on news channels and debate, but maybe it got to a point where he was fed up, like, oh, this isn't bringing the money, or they're not poking the bear. So now it's like, okay, who else is our enemy? So he's done talks on the Asian community, the Hispanic community in America, and how they're this and that, but a lot of them just stay away. But now he's like, non-ADOS black people. So black migrants in America, foreign blacks, they're the problem too. They're preventing us from thriving. And so the reason he does that, I think this is a general approach to a lot of these leaders, is that you need to create an enemy that's tangible enough to keep people alert and sort of on your side. He was the first guy to associate, non-black ADOS people, black ADOS people, non-ADOS people to that narrative, the enemy. We are the enemy now. You hear it everywhere. Oh, anytime you speak to an American, you've had some ADOS folks on your panel and they're very supportive, but the majority those who speak on it seem to be so against us without even knowing us. And it's like, where does this come from?
This is it. Some unbridled hate, as if, hold on a second. It's like, did we enslave you? What? Did we do this to you? I'm like, oh my days. And it's like, but yeah, you're right. It's unbridled hate, and it's crazy.
The need for it seems as if he knows that in order to keep his sort of visual, his viewership up, you need to create that type of beef. And so I think that's the strongest hold he has now. The minority within the minority. So all these black non-ADOS folks are the target now. We need to stay away from them. We need to root them out because they want to represent us. And it's like, whoa. This agenda now, it's like,
it fuels the emotion. This is it, doesn't it? It stirs the emotions up. And again, if you understand a group and what they've been, their trauma, their past traumas, whether it be an individual or a collective group, if you can really tap into that and tap into their fears, you have that person. It's almost, I'm trying to think when I look at the history of Rwanda and the Hutus and Tutsis, it's like they were fine operating, but then all of a sudden there's this emotional outpouring, and they managed to tap into these things. And you had people who pretty much were cordial, were fighting each other to their bare bones. Like, how does that happen? You're thinking, and it caused like one of the biggest massacres. And it's just like, it's almost like if you can tap into a group's emotions, talk about Brexit, how it fueled a lot of issues in the country, which is still going on today. There's a lot of things which is linked to nationalism, which again, historically Britain, you could say from Great Britain to Britain, a lot of things, if you can trigger a group of people emotionally, it pulls a cord than any facts can. I'm telling you, if you can emotionally manipulate somebody, and this seems to be even including the men, I'm telling you, it's it's a recipe for, as you said, what we're seeing now, root them out, all this kind of language. It's crazy. It creates a situation where there's the new enemy. It's like, once you've gone from one thing, who's the new enemy? Who do we have to now try and put up as the person on the darts board? We we need enemies. You know what I mean? There's no nuances. There has to be an enemy there because for some reason we have to have one in our heads. It seems.
Oh no, we've covered every angle to this conversation. I would say another thing is let's even touch on it because I think you tried to bring it up, but we were talking on other topics too. But when it comes to like this other group of black men who want to basically divest from the community themselves, okay, a group that I would say, yeah, they have a thing. So I've supported them on your panel. Like, hey, look, they're tired. So it's like, okay, they're moving on. They're going to date other groups of women because they feel like if they expand their options, they don't have to deal with this sort of toxic environment anymore. But I do believe there's a fraction of them that are still driven. If they talk more on this quote-unquote scraggle-daggle, you know, no offense to anyone listening, but that's what they call black women, then in their mind it's like, have they really left or are they just sat here complaining over and over again? Because I remember seeing Tommy Sotomayor, he was dating this was it this European woman, and he was still talking. It's like, you've moved on now. Like, if you
He said
say
as well,
FSBM,
he said in the stream, and I should have ripped this off. He said, if I was to ever date out, I will no longer talk about the black community. That's what he said, because he was arguing with someone on the show recording who had divested, and he was basically saying you shouldn't be speaking on black issues because you've
Just
now
leave
left. But he himself said, if I ever did the same thing, I will not talk about it evermore. But again, he's still talking it. Now you can argue he still deals with black women, but even at the time when he was with that white woman, I'm sure he was like, I can't remember now if it's thrown in people's faces, he still was talking about black women. I'm like, hold on, you've left. You've now joined paradise. You've gone into heaven now. You know what I mean? You've tasted that pink. I don't want to say that word, and now you're in heaven. Okay, so it's just like, there it is. All right, but no, he's still talking about it.
that's the thing where we had that conversation on the panel, and I was in defense of the movement, but then you were pointing to a very distinct problem within that movement of they just ramble on about the same people they're meant to leave. It was like, come on, bro.
Have you seen that website? Oh my days, I'm telling you,
FS Avengers, right?
No, Slaying.
Okay,
it was done by a British guy. I don't know if you want me to name drop. It was
Babatunde.
Yeah, he's a British guy.
Yeah.
Again, I'm like, okay, you're unhappy with the state of black women in the West. Cool, got you. I'm like, they only talk about. I barely hear any streams or I don't see any articles which actually says these are the men who have now left and we're happy. This is what it's not like it's selling it in a positive way. They're just trying to say, here all the negatives, here all the negatives. I'm like, bro, you're meant to be happy. I thought you guys are happy. Happy people don't do this. You know what I mean? Happy people don't.
Days.
So it sounds like they're unhappy that they've had to do it and they still are invested. At least that's how I see it.
Mate, when I see them have those videos up ranting, I'm like, no, they're not over yet. They're sticking with the sisters. They want to look like, you know how people say, oh, I get with someone else to make someone else jealous, like, but they still like that person. That's them, and that's funny. Hey, what's up, Falcon Black? Nice to join the stream. Resentful men #1, indeed. A lot of resent in the YouTube streets. I'm telling you. And he says that Caucasian hit different. Okay. I ain't gonna speak on it. I ain't gonna get too personal on here. Okay.
But this is where I get a little bit not too emotional, but I get like, don't be coming. It's like if black women come for black men, like, come on now, relax. We're not all that bad. And when black men go for black men, like, come on now, let's not do that. I'm like, you can't find these. Tell me all of them are unicorns. There's no such thing as a black woman you can't just build with. Because at the end of the day, it's true. You only need one woman, or again, if you're a woman, or one man, if you swing that way, whatever way you swing, and build a life with. You know what I mean? You don't need. Sometimes I'm like, you guys doing extra things. I'm like, it's just mad. And then when I look at we want marriage material women. You've never cared about marriage material women until recently with this trend. You talk about trends and emotions. Oh, bro, there's so many things which are just like
noisy.
Yeah, noisy indeed. And people who truly are just going about their business, it's not about that. They just find a person who they liked, have to be of another race. They get put into this mess, and it's not like that. So there's no distinction don't get often made, and they get lost in the bunch, unfortunately.
No, people just love making noise, man. And yeah, so I wanted to address that real quick because
so much emotions.
This just ties into everything we're speaking on today, and it's like, once we realize that it's a chronic issue in the YouTube space, but you can tell as well because it brings the views, people just feed into it, even though maybe it's not a part of how they think on a daily basis. But if you're listening to content like that on a daily basis, that should stress you out. Like, I'll be fed up, man. You know?
You would think so. I saw a live stream for 8 hours, and I was like, when I played it, screaming and hollering, I clicked off it. A couple of hours later, still on, screaming and hollering. I'm like, you broke. Aren't you guys?
What would have been? What was the context of their topic? What was it on? Was it just complaining about is it gender war again?
Well, part of it was about the recent controversy about what KS has said on his live stream. Have you heard about it?
No. So I came across everyone talking about it. I still don't know what exactly it's
So
about. If you want to address it real quick.
Sure. Obviously, I don't want to sort of like name drop and like because from your live stream, but cool. Basically, he said that he understands that if black men we should be advocating for black men getting with other men. They're basically the LGBT. So he was saying even KS was quoted as saying, "I understand the urges. We should be advocating." Seriously, this is what was said by KS, and as you can imagine now, streets fire. That's what KS said. He was talking about we should be advocating for for black men to be with black. Now, I will say this: I didn't watch his live stream, so I'm just going to say it. But the cutoff point was basically like that. I don't know if it had some broader context, which, as you know, in the streets, they don't. But from what I think a minute on a clip I heard, that was what it was, and I was like, oh no. But yeah,
mate,
about that.
I haven't listened to him in a while. Like, I've supported his like idea, but it's a very repetitive. So maybe he's gone to the point where he's letting out things that maybe he held back for a long time. So it's like now he's wait. Awesome. How can you even say that about men? Like men, the urges for men to get with other men. No, that's a man who's just homosexual. So that's what he's always been into. So what is he? Let me not even cross the line. I did not expect that.
Yeah, it's yeah. And the thing is, again, his defense force hasn't really said anything yet on it, but there've been a load of people who are obviously not on that side who are, we know this all the time. We knew he was this. We knew he had sugar in his tank. We knew this. We do this, and yeah, bro, tell you this.
Was this like a preparation? If this is true, I don't even know. Yeah, things that get taken out of context. But if this is true, was this his plan all along to just sort of feed into the minds like, okay, we're gonna normalize this conversation now. Let's lead into this conversation. Like, men should be open to this. It's like, no, we're not that far gone where we can't date women at all. So now we have to go resort to dating men. Like, what the hell?
I heard this one theory where someone was saying, you know what, men get tired of the punani that they go over to, the other hole. I'm like, no chance. Where you see these guys in like churches, they've gone for the women and they go for the men now. I'm like, oh, no chance. Who are these? So
yeah. Oh yeah, Falcon Black said, oh, yeah, damn, who's this? Like, hey, I saw the video. Yeah, I noticed that too, but it's the clickbait I left there. I didn't mind. Hey, engagement is engagement. I'm loving it, so I don't mind either. Were you gonna say something?
No, I was gonna say when I came on it, it was like 1 dislike, and I thought it was that guy who you basically blocked. Yeah. Now I'm like 7, bro.
Yeah,
we haven't been saying anything really at least I don't think controversial. We've been all right.
Either one streamer maybe have noticed me mention something, and now someone's on. But look, I don't mind the hate. Like, this is great. Yeah. We can have this conversation. But yeah, that surprised me too. I didn't mind. Gloria, how are you doing? We will either accuse ourselves or excuse ourselves. Saint John Vianney. I haven't heard that quote before, but it sounds good. These are beta men. Okay, so I think we got connected to another stream, maybe a female-centered stream. I think I don't know, because I think the conversation we're having is directed at men, so I'm not sure what caused it. But if anyone wants to have that conversation, I don't know, like, come on the panel. I've got it pinned. You can have it. But yeah, someone must have caught my stream and it has some type of point of view. I don't know.
Absolutely. And let me talk about the whole alpha beta. I hate those terms, isn't it? But again, I think this is how we distort things in the West. And again, it's going back to this whole over emotional, because the stereotypical alpha male for me is over emotional. What's pinned up. If you're somebody who's controlling their emotions, you're seen as very much like a bitch. So this is another thing where it's just like, do you know when we talk about how, why are you guys like this? And I hate them to come back to this whole topic of dating and relationships, but you are seen as like that. I remember even myself, slick comments that white people make, like, "Oh, you're not like other black people. You're cool." I'm like, what is that supposed to mean? But I know what that means. It's like I'm not that. You know what I mean? Oh, I'm gonna be up in your face if someone says something slick. Yo, that's racist. That's racist. That's racist. And you see what I mean? So it's almost like you're put into a box already, not for any fault of your own. You're just born, and obviously what's transpired and the stereotypes, whatever it is. But it's like there is an element where it's like, geez, if you don't fall within that stereotype, it's just like you're not sometimes accepted by your own people because you don't necessarily follow the trends of your own people, and you're kind of in a iffy kind of way with other groups of people because it's like either I'm a token or you see me as that guy who I'm not that guy. I'm still black. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Sometimes, a lot of times, these are the things which are just. I understand why we are a bit more emotional. It's like almost we're playing up to again the stereotype because you hear these slick
It's
things.
the expressive type. I'm gonna post a quick video on this real quick. It's basically showing athletes very expressive, which is okay. But when you know it's as a and kind of like out of it's the alpha trait they kind of try and describe as is, but I don't agree with
Dre.
it.
Sorry, Dre. Sorry, Dre. This is about to go real left. Sorry, Dre. First of all, y'all don't even know what y'all talking about because y'all talking about the NBA. Everybody got guaranteed contracts, and it's false. They do.
So I'll pause right there. I was watching this video and I just noticed it seemed as if the loudest person in the room, the most expressive person, must be saying something factual, right? And that's something I notice a lot in like the black community. Like men like this sort of are considered the alpha, and so it's like, yeah, he knows what he's talking about. He's passionate about it. You know what I'm saying? And that's what being black is about, because that's where we came from. You know, we'll fight for the power. You know, it's like that type of energy. It's like, yo, is there a need for it? You know, is there a need for it? So I was showing this as an example in the intro.
Easy for them to do that because they have smaller numbers.
I know who
LeBron James runs
right.
the NBA PA. Kobe Bryant was sitting out there. For us, we had kickers.
I'm just like, okay, whoa, he's passionate about his sport, you know, his career. But I noticed that this isn't just one episode out of many where they're just like ranting, like his veins popping out. I don't know if it's from just training and what it does to people, but I'm just like, whoa, you know, it's not as much in the UK or, you know, even in the third world countries where men are just so passionate like that. It seems as if it's been associated with being black nowadays, where we have to be expressive. If we're too level-headed, then there's something wrong with you. You know, it's like, no, I don't want to be a part of that lifestyle, or, you know, like I remember being on certain panels, like American panels, or even on Clubhouse, where if I don't sound like this, then there's nothing to speak about. You know, I have to.
Not hyped.
Yeah, I'm just like, yo, is this what we represent? Like in general, like I had to grow up to figure out that no, I don't have to be like that to be seen as a leader. Like that's not what leaders do. You have to be level-headed, cool-headed. But yeah, what do you think?
No, I agree, and again, it's always interesting how, as that guy Brandon Marshall, who's a former NFL player, how he's so. I mean, it's like it's almost. I mean, we can hear you know. You don't have to be so loud and aggressive with it. It's like we can have a discourse about it, but again, that's just seen as. And then someone at Falcon Black said it's seen as a it's not a black trait to have such a good emotional balance, impulse control. That's not black. That's too dry. You this, you that. It's almost like, again, I don't know if they play up to it or forced or whatnot. We can talk about single mothers, single parents, all that kind of other stuff. But bro, it's what I really wanted to understand though is on the opposite side, when we look at, like, let's say black African men and how they stereotypically have a more cooler disposition. And I'm always interested to see as to how is that seen? How is masculinity seen on that end? Is that seen as a masculine trait or not masculine trait? Why is that the case? So I'm always interested in that to see if that, because I've always been kind of level-headed and balanced, to be fair, but I'm always thinking to myself, obviously being in the West, you get distorted. That's not really, you know what I mean? You have to be a bit more emotional and aggressive. You have to be assertive, but a bit more on the aggressive side when you do these, when you take these things. So I'm like, sometimes I think, does a more simpler lifestyle? I use that nicely. I know it's not simple in the third world, but more of a, you don't have some of the let's say let's try to use the word simpler lifestyle. Does that cater towards a more amenable human being because you have less things? Because I always think that having more things creates more stresses, but less things can cause less stress, so you have a different disposition to life. I don't know.
This is where I feel like, I can make a lot of topics on this right now, like separate streams on this right now. What's funny is that when you compare, let's say, third world Africans versus like the American experience, and when it comes to like emotion and expression, I noticed that the labeled thuggery in Africa, for example, like the ratchet behavior or the thug or the gangster of Africa, is seen as beneath and below any cultural dynamic. Like for example, in Nigeria, we call them area boys, boys who kind of act a certain way in the streets. They're involved in crime. They're looked down on, like, by society. Like, no one wants to be in that position. And even those type of men, I'll go for that. Even though those type of men, once they get money, they behave differently. They behave like the elders of the community. Like, very cool headed. You see the richest men in the community, they're very like, oh yeah, they're giving out money like it's nothing. So to them, it's like that prestigeness of being cool, level-headed, wealthy was what makes them, that culture, that African culture. Whilst the thugs that we maybe praise in the West, the ones who have been shot a few times, are considered lowlives in our countries in the third world. It's like, why would you be praising that type of lifestyle? But because of this Western influence in music and just the hip hop agenda, like it is spreading in Africa too, where now they want to embrace that type of lifestyle in a way. The young generation are trying it, but I've noticed that when they reach that phase of adulthood, they leave that behind, because if you want to join the workforce, this thuggery has to be discarded, or you ain't going nowhere. You're not going to get your papers to travel if you act like a thug, because no one's going to take you. So it's like that changes with age. But for some reason, I've noticed in the West, UK, America, a lot of these boys don't become men. They just continue with the same traits that they had when they were, in the street as teens, and now they're still dressing the same way, they still act the same way. No change, no improvement, compared to those in other countries. So that's why I wanted to point on. That could be a separate stream, to be honest.
You're right. It's the positive reinforcement. Whereas, so obviously in the West, it's positive reinforced with, and you touched on it, the culture, especially music. Obviously, music is a big part of the culture, and it's like, it's always interesting. Every sort of generation, the culture gets kind of worse. I mean, old school hip hop rap was like gangster rap. It's gone down to drill, where it's all about killing. It's just chefing people, stabbing, shanking people. It's like, bro, and these are reinforced because people listen to this kind of music. So it's reinforced to have that lifestyle. It's almost as if people have to play on, I come from these ends, I come from that ends. It's a positive reinforce that you have to be from a bad situation or a bad area. You have to have that struggle. It's that struggle environment where it causes us to be, to play up to that, where we have to be that way, where you can't just be some guy trying to be about his business. That's not sexy enough. That's not black enough. Whereas, as you said, it negative reinforced over in as I said, in Nigeria, where they're called area boys, but they realize once they get some sense when they're age, it's like, they're gonna act like a normal adult or human being, depending on what it is. So that's negatively reinforced. It's not propped up. Whereas over here, it's propped up. And I'm like this. Whose fault is that? Is that our fault? Because I think a part of it is our fault, where we listen to this type of music. Why do we? I know we like the beat, but is that an excuse? Because if we like it, people are going to produce it more. There's going to be more drill artists out there, more rappers. Why? Because you like it. It's who we look up to, who our heroes are. I think Stormzy was voted as the what was it, the #1 role model for, like, not even just black kids, but for kids.
Role model.
Yeah, no, serious. It was Stormzy. I think it was it last year, or I know that I did like an article, like it was on a top 10 easily. I think it was like #2 or something.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying he doesn't do good things, but the essence of who Stormzy is, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, fair enough then. But you see what I'm saying? It,
No,
it
I
just
agree.
creates.
I remember watching an interview about this at the beginning of this year, and he looked confused himself. So I'll touch on that after. You said something, and uh, it's about how we promote rebellion. I'm going to answer that one sec. Raya is singing my praises. Thank you so much. This is why I love the Duke AJP. I'm not sure who AJP. If you want
Average
to.
Joe's podcast.
Oh, not your average Joe. Yes. Thank you. You have the that's me. Um, you have the best attitude for YouTube. You don't get emotional about people's comments, opinions. You're the epitome of logical man. This is a breath of fresh air on YouTube. Thank you so much, Raya. You're great support of both platforms. I don't know how she found my platform. Maybe I made a comment, but this solo platform, this solo channel was meant to be hidden. But I'm glad you found it. But yeah. So
What's hidden in the dark will be shown in the light. That's a Bible scripture.
Hey, I'm shaking. But yeah, she made a good point about, okay, the way I take comments, like if someone disagrees with me, like I'm addicted to panels on YouTube for some reason. The past few months, I've just been going anywhere. And I've been insulted a few times, but I
Oh,
don't
wow.
mind the criticism, right? So when I'm in the comments and they mention me, I'm just like, okay, that's cool. And it's the same on the Not Your Average Girl podcast with my co-host. We're very positive in the way we receive comments, even if it's negative. Like we just accept it. I don't know if it's a trait that I grew up with or is a cultural thing. I don't know, but I'm not driven as deeply when it comes to reactionary ways of speaking to people. So I get that, but thanks so much for the compliment. I would say this as well, when it comes to like the UK. Okay, Stormzy, right? You brought this up, White Man. He seemed confused when he was called a role model. So when it comes down to
Did he really? All
like
right.
yeah, artists, like he I won't say that he accepted the praises, but for him it was like well, isn't there anyone else who did something that young people should be praising,
Okay.
like some type of scientist or inventor or something, like a political advocate? He is none of that. He's never been into politics. In fact, he is a secret Tory supporter. If you
Is
didn't
he?
notice, I've been calibrating evidence for a while now, especially on Twitter. He's been
Please bring it. Please
wild.
bring it.
So the first was when he had an interview while he was dating Naomi Campbell, and the interview was just asking several politically charged or racial questions.
Hold on. Are
And
you
it-
talking about Stormzy or Skepta?
Oh,
you said
snap!
dating Naomi
Skepta.
Campbell. Okay.
I thought it was. Oh,
Skepta was
yeah. So yeah. Stormzy. Was he confused? No, I think okay. He appreciated that. I thought
he said Naomi
because
Campbell. I was like, no, Skepta.
Yeah.
Stormzy
Right.
got Maya Jama.
Yeah. So okay, now Skepta was referred to as like an influencer to young people. So I assumed you were talking about the same thing. But he was in Good Morning America, and he looked confused. Like, okay, like I'm a musician, So so not Stormzy. I apologize for that
No,
mistake.
that's fine.
Yeah, but they have similar approaches to things. But you can tell that Stormzy is Skepta is slightly different when it comes to that. Yeah, but do you think that Stormzy is what type of influence does he have on young people then compared to like other rappers in the UK?
I mean, he's been like, I suppose someone said, a poster boy. So he's been that person, and he's been getting very good PR when it comes to the things he's done in the community, and even other influencers like Zizi Mills. She co-signs him and says basically, and this is what happens in the black community. I don't care what anyone says. No one can chat to man because of what he does, and this is that whole faith versus work stuff. And you're like, do you excuse who he is because he's donated? Because he's like, he did something where he was a scheme where he was trying to get more black students into Oxford. He's got a promotional scheme. He's doing all this kind of thing, which is great. The thing is, I can't knock it. It's great. But everything he is, you don't want people to replicate his life. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where it's their existence, the way that they are. And when we positively enforce it, we have to try and say, look, we go a different route. But because people are seeing him as that person, oh my God, it's Stormzy, they're going to replicate who he is because he can do things which the average educated person cannot do. That's another thing as well. When you look at how Stormzy will make a hell of a lot more than majority of just normal person who goes to university will ever make in their lifetime, I assume. So when you have that, how do you compete with that? You know what I mean? How do you compete with somebody like that, rappers who make all these all these millions every year. How do you compete with that kind of stuff? They're known all around the world. They're so famous. One tweet can just basically change a man's life or a woman's life. How do you compete with that? And yet we're trying to say, no. You want to be like this. So a young person can be looking at, well, he's got the cars, he's got the money, he's got the girls, he's got the fame. He's sending you to university, dad. You know what I mean? He sent you to university. How do you compete? How do you convince someone of that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, you know what? When it comes to like how artists, musicians, celebrities influence how young people think, it's almost like that's a universal understanding that for some reason they have a huge impact on young people.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but not just black. But what's funny about sort of the black community in the West is that we think that artists, actors represent some type of leadership role in the culture, or in like they represent what it means to be black in the UK for some reason. Like, whoa, that's a big responsibility to even put on someone, first of all. And then why is it that that's what represents a culture, like the music? Like, we know there's more to the community than music and rappers. Like, for some reason, the people adhere to every word, like every verse a rapper says, like it's like their gospel. I'm like, whoa, hold on. Like, there's literature, there's like, you know, social scientists that read into the way your life is, and you seem to rely on rappers. Like, rappers are expressive. They're like the Shakespeare of the modern age and none of that. Yeah. But they're not the type of influence that you need to use as an academic breakdown. Like right now, maybe at a time when they've gone, like Shakespeare. But for example, I would say, oh, my head's gonna fly by now. Well, there's one point I was gonna make about how, what's the point to the conversation? I was leading to somewhere where, okay, artists are being placed in this position of like being the major breadwinner to this culture, but it shouldn't be. When I mentioned Michael Eric Dyson. Are you familiar with that?
I do know who he is. He's a very charismatic guy. He chats a lot without saying anything, but I do like listening to him.
Yeah, he's like a poet, but with academics, and then at the same time, he would reference Beyonce, Jay-Z. Jay-Z, for some reason, is like his number one go-to. I mean, he comes across as someone who is intelligent. Like, he probably knows major literature, like in terms of those who've written about contemporary history and the past, but for some reason he feels the need to use specific like artists today to make a point that is meant to be profound. Like, once Jay-Z said, "Yeah, you can't have," and it's like, no, that's not something intellectual. That's just you're applying it to this. But if he thinks that's meant to attract young people, then he's thinking low of young people, in my opinion. Like, if you're speaking to a student in your lecture in university about how Jay-Z has changed how you think about society, people would think I would think you're crazy. It's like, are you okay? Like, Jay-Z makes money out of making music. He's expressive. He's not. It's just like a rock star. But rock stars aren't being used to explain your, livelihood and social issues. Maybe use it to the side like a footnote. But why is it your major thesis? Like, what's going on?
I will bring it back to, unfortunately, slavery a bit and say this: when it comes to music and rebellion, I think a lot of it does start. I mean, I know from like a Caribbean perspective, like reggae and some of the music and how it,
like Bob Marley,
and how it's all about rebellion, and it was always about Babylon and all them kind of other stuff, and it must still be just present. And music seems to be, I think, for most black cultures in some fashion. I could be wrong, but especially the ones that I'm aware of, or that they seem, the music is like almost the heartbeat of how they move and how they feel. And we, again, going back to the emotion, we have to feel it. It's like, I'll say this. That's why I don't like Drake. I don't feel it. I don't know what it is. It's like there's a whole beef between Drake and Meek Mill, and even though I don't like Meek Mill, I feel his music more. I feel Meek Mill more than Drake. And I think a lot of that is because of, again, the emotional attachment to, especially when it comes to music, we have to feel it. So when it comes to why does he quote Jay-Z, why is he quoting these, I think it's because for some odd reason we do put attachments to the music. It's the heartbeat of a lot of us. It's our pulse. I don't know, I can't compare it to other cultures and how they see it, but ones that our black ones that I'm aware of, and even myself, I use myself an example, we feel it a lot more. And of course, the lyrics is just a part of that. And again, I hear people quoting the lyrics like 50 Cent, "Get rich or die trying," or some quote like that from Nas, or from Stormzy, or from whoever, Skepta, Jamie, whoever it is back in the day. It's like, yeah, we feel like it's the gospel according to so and so. And even like when it comes to dress sense, fashion, clothes, it's the music is like the culture, and it's a young man's game. You know what I mean? And the youth are the ones who seem to control the culture, whereas the elders are meant to try and steer the way. But the youth control a lot of the cultural aspects of what happens, on especially on social media. It's crazy. But
I think that should kind of be curbed and prevented. Like young people shouldn't, not because I think they're less than, but that's a lot of influence to have, because I wasn't thinking the same way I was 10 years ago or when I was a teenager, because like don't listen to me when I was 18, 17. I mean, I'm expressive, I've got great like an opinion on how my experience is, but I'm not your word of wisdom at 17. That's what I would say. You're absolutely right when it comes to how music is some type of profound influence on us. I think in comparison to other cultures, I would say that's the same thing too, maybe to a larger extent. Like I would say for Africans, for example, Fela Kuti in Nigeria was a profound influence on politics, especially when they're involved in political movements. That's where we placed them as a footnote, as a timestamp in a type of movement, and it is important to us. But I just don't want it to be the sole purpose of our existence. In a way, I've spoken to friends where literally their only influence is music. Their only influence, and I'm just like, if you want to be, self-aware and self-improve, at least like be open to other avenues of knowledge rather than lyrics. You're always posting lyrics on Instagram stories like that's your bread and butter. Yes, it is for me too. I have my favorite artists, but I know that if I want to understand my blackness in America or in the UK, I have to be more into literature rather than an artist is saying. Like, I want to be driven like solely when it comes to music for my spirit, but for my intellect, Stormzy is not the go-to. For my understanding of society, of politics, I don't Skepta. I shouldn't be asking him for advice on what to do. When it comes to gun crime, because that's what they did on Good Morning America. Dizzy Rascal is like, this is not their place.
Yeah. And the thing is about Dizzy Rascal, I give him credit because there was two incidents. The first incident, I don't know if you remember this. This was the 2011 riots, and it was Jeremy Paxman. He was asking Dizzy Rascal some questions, and unfortunately, it didn't go too well. And Dizzy Rascal looked a bit like a fool because, let's be honest, he's kind of a rapper. We're not expecting him to, be an incident like that. And a lot of black people dragged him. So they asked him again last year, or was it this year, on Good Morning Britain. And he basically deferred, like, ask a caller, because he knew. Unfortunately, I do feel sorry for some of these artists where they're just doing the music. They're almost like being seen as they have to represent the people because they talk about, obviously the ends. Sometimes I think it's a dual-edged sword. They actually talk like they're all from the people. They represent the people. So the people are expecting them to represent for the people. And yeah, it's almost like rap and politics, black music and politics, whatever it is. It just seems to go hand in hand. So I was going to bring up
I was going to say, unless they want to be in that position, because I might know of one or two rappers who are pretty much like politically involved. That's good if they want to be. But it's like, man, it's like too much pressure on someone like Dizzy Rascal. You didn't ask for this. But even the outside community would think, white people would think, okay, if I want to make a profound change, I have to speak to this artist to get an understanding of what black people are going through now. If they're prepared for it, because some are very aware. Maybe not today, because in the past, definitely artists were involved like that, with movements. But today, I would say majority they don't care. They just want to make money, man.
Yeah.
Too much pressure. And then the young people would just accept it. Not even just young people my age, late 20s. It's like that's who they look to for a message. It's like, no, They don't want that much pressure. Chief Keef did not want to answer these questions. Migos, what's his name? They were all being pressured into representing the community. Like, no, let them make their money. You know, they might want to try new things. They don't. Sometimes they don't even want to come back to the community they grew up in because people want to leave.
The problem is, and this is another thing about black folk, I'll say I've seen, because they listen to music and they buy into it, they almost feel like you're contractually obligated to serve their purpose. So they're like, you need to speak on this issue, and not only that, it has to be their viewpoint. So this is where a lot of artists, they try and stay away from it because they know if they have a different viewpoint of the usual victimhood narrative, they're going to get absolutely cancelled by black folk. So black folk have been cancelling people for ages before this whole cancel culture happened. But yeah, it's not only that they almost like, you have to speak on this. It's like, you have to speak on this how we want it to be spoken on. So unless you're not going to use the normal pirating talking points, it's like, forget about it. So that's another thing where it's like so much pressure. And you're right, they just want to make money. That's all they want to do. So yeah, it's just boy, too much politics.
You know what? Yeah, I wouldn't even just put on musicians. I would even put on comedians. Like, you know, this Dave Chappelle fiasco that's going on now. I think Dave feels pressured into talking on things that might adhere to, like, okay, so he speaks on the LGBT community, but he also still brings on the BLM movement and how black people are going through. If you've like listened to his comics, like his stand-up in the past, he definitely had some innuendos involving race, but he made it funny. But now it's almost like he wants to be an advocate. You can hear it. Like, he made a comparison with like, I don't mind his comments on LGBT community. Like, it's controversial, but it makes sense, but it's not meant to actually offend anyone. But when he brought up what's his name, Little Baby, these names are killing me. Little Baby.
Oh, you're talking not like
that the one who was homophobic, apparently, and he was being cancelled. Yeah, the baby. Apparently, he made a comparison about how the baby shot a black guy in the store. No one, went for him. No one cancelled him then. But when he offends gay people, they will now want to complain. He's like, he's using that double standard, but people were calling out like, that's a bad comparison, because he was defending himself when he shot that man. It was like a stand your ground law. He didn't get arrested for it because he was protecting his family when that happened. So why did he use that? Maybe he didn't know the context, or maybe he was being disingenuous, but it's just a comic, right? But because he's placed himself in such an important role where he's an advocate for almost everyone, they're scrutinizing him even harder. I think he's made a lot of these comments in the past, but now it's even harder because he's an advocate for racism. He's an advocate for... It's like they trap themselves in that situation. And I feel like the people are pressuring them to speak on certain things when it's just comedy.
No, I agree. I mean, I remember watching Dave Chappelle back in the day, and you're right. He did reference political issues, but again, he was able to do it in a way where he wasn't seen to be an activist. I remember when
very light, yes,
artist. He was mainly mention of the whole Bill Clinton, and he made a mention like, "Where's Ja Rule when we need him?" Because Ja Rule was apparently interviewed for something. He's like, "Why are you bringing this Ja? We don't care about what Ja Rule says." And and I was like, "Yeah, but you're right." So he was able to straddle the fence without going too much over it, where it seemed like he's an activist. But now, I don't know. Dave Chappelle's always. He's now. I've not really watched his new stuff.
He seems serious now,
Yeah, I mean, even on the BLM, he was coming after Candace Owens. I remember hearing about that.
Yes,
you heard that.
I heard that too.
Yeah. And again, so I don't know. I think there's more pressure on not just our comedians, athletes as well, to be that pin up for the community. Over here, Marcus Rashford with the free school meals. That's more of a wider piece. Yeah. But there seems to be more of a focus on your impact. Lewis Hamilton, he's another example of somebody. There's more of a focus now on an impact, especially if you're black, where it has to be more community focused. There has to be that I'm for the people. And it's like, I don't know, leading the people. It's wild to me when I'm like, I don't want to.
You know what, bro?
Lewis, I'm not gonna take advice from someone like you. You know what I mean? So
that's the thing. It's not that he wants to be an advocate, because we are in support of passionate athletes. Like, they go the mile where someone like what's his name that did bended in his knee. Like that was like a huge sacrifice he was making there. Yeah, Colin Kaepernick. People will say, okay, that's another form of virtue signaling, but he risked his whole career for that movement. However, it turned out. But then you have like Lewis Hamilton, as you mentioned. I think that was just virtual signaling. He was just doing little things here and there to show his solidarity, but it didn't seem genuine because you're living life in Monaco. You're living that high class life. Like people who look at you, they're not even looking at black anymore. They're looking at fame.
You know, Lewis Hamilton. I don't know if you know anything about Lewis Hamilton Formula 1, but he is an emotional male, and he had a father in his life as well.
Gosh,
he's so emotional. I'm telling you. So
yeah, I won't know him like in. Yeah, I don't know him in depth. I know he's the #1 Formula 1 driver, but from what I've seen so far, I could see that. He's just all over the place, you know. So
and that's it. And he's even doing interviews where it's like, I've never wanted my legacy to just be about on the track. I've always wanted my legacy to be something else. I never want to be remembered just as a racing driver and all this kind of other things. And I was like, no offense, but like, since when? Now I will say this in his defense. He was billed as the first black racing driver, so that's a new thing. And this is sometimes where you're in a position where you can't control. So you're the first black this, so you have to like hold that line. Do you ever get that feeling like you have to hold the line, even in your day-to-day life?
Yes. When I'm maybe the only black person in the room, there's a slight
It's like you don't want to be that. Sometimes like I don't want to feel like I'm a sellout. It's a weird thing, and I'm like I don't want to be too emotional, but I gotta hold the line. It's just like maybe. This is just part of the mental gymnastics or the whole how we feel and how we think, but it's like we have to like hold the line, and maybe that's how it is being the only black person here, the only black person there, the only black woman here. It's like you almost have to hold the line, and it's
you know what we would blame the celebrity to one extent, and then also call out people on social media, people who think that someone like Michael B. Jordan has to be with a black woman or else we're going to cancel all his show viewings. And it's like, what? So what I'm saying is the celebrities have their own thing where they have to virtual signal some type of point of view. But then also the people maybe influenced by that, the people are reinforcing that. Like, oh, if I see this man would be with this type of person, we have to cancel. They're not pro-black enough. They're not like they haven't even asked for that, but for some reason they're obliged to because they're in that position. Yeah, hold the line for who? Like no, live your life. You're successful. Yeah, you might be the first black something, but you're still an individual. You reach that point to your own merit, and a lot of black people take praise and take credit for someone else's, achievements. In a way, it's like, okay, that shows that you could do it too. But to an extent, it's like now they have to represent us to the point they have to follow all our codes.
Do you remember? I can't pronounce his surname. The actor Daniel Kaluuya.
Yes, the one who played Get Out. Yeah,
Get Out, and how he was playing the role Queen and Slim, which is like an American again based on like kind of like a struggle and fighting the power. And he was asked about racism, and he gave an answer which didn't suit the code. The Americans went off on him. They went off on him. And this is where again some of the whole he ain't one of us, he ain't 80 West, because he just had a difference of an opinion. Had he hold the line, so to speak, had he stayed on code, they wouldn't have said anything. But because he offered a different viewpoint to the narrative about race and I don't need to why don't I need to be talking about race, and it wasn't even like a horrible comment, but because the comment wasn't on code, because he didn't hold the line, so to speak, they felt betrayed. They wanted to cancel him. They were saying all this kind of other stuff. You don't get it. Dr. Umar Johnson was talking about him. And this is why this sounds stupid he is. This guy has 6 degrees, Dr. Umar Johnson. But he was saying, I don't like the fact that he's got that British accent. I was like, what? He's from the UK. He's like, oh, he's a Ugandan, but he has a British accent. I was like, what is he talking about? What is he talking about? So, oh God, it's just crazy. But that's how it is. Once you no longer stay on code, you're not one of us. Everything else is in question. It's just like, yeah.
Mate, okay. I don't know where to start with that one. Because at the same time, I don't want to start making comparisons, but it's like the ADOS community are also ignorant on the other experiences of black people in other Western countries where they say stuff like that. And it's like they hope that we stay on code with them, not knowing that we have some type of experience that when we don't touch base on. Like I was on Falcon Black's panel once, and I was describing my experience. But an ADOS guy was like, no, you're not in line with what we're dealing with here. It's a global thing. Like white supremacy. That's the thing. I don't believe it's the same everywhere. I think we have an extent of it, but if I take on the idea that I'm going through the same thing as Americans are going through, I'll be lying to myself because I don't think
Even
I go
Americans,
through
there are
the same
Americans
thing.
who don't. These Americans who don't agree with what they say. So I'm hearing some feedback. I don't know if it's that your stream.
Oh, sorry. 1 second. I'm dealing with my sound.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah. If you heard, oh man, I'm looking for my other headphones. Yeah, I was just saying how, in the UK, like the extent of the pressures of race and our dynamic here is slightly different. Okay, and I was trying to explain that to them. It was like, no, they're reinforcing their idea of racism on me. I'm like, no, I'm okay like this, but you're going through the shit you're going through, but I can't resonate with it. So I was trying to set base with them. It's like, no, you're not. You're off code. Off code. I was like, what? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, you give your input. I'm gonna fix my sound. 1 sec. Sorry.
No worries. And I was going to say to that, even their own people, they have a massive distaste for. I mean, I like guys like Thomas Sowell and Walter E. Williams and people like that, and who they speak on a lot of racial issues. I remember like Thomas Sowell back in the day, he was talking about racism is not black people's biggest problem back in the 70s, 80s. And my days, he was getting absolutely pelters. Obviously, I have Larry Elden right now, sort of holding the line. But yeah, it's just if you're not on code as an artist, and even in the UK now, again, if you're not on code as an artist, whatever the accepted, this is the thing. I don't know where black people seem to. I must have missed a meeting or some town hall somewhere where everyone as black people got together and said we agree on this. I must have missed that party because I'm pretty sure as human beings, this is another thing which is a funny thing. Black people say to white people, "We're not all the same." Okay, cool. But when you actually different of opinion, oh no. We're off code. But hold on, we said black people aren't all the same. So which one is it? Either aren't all the same or we are, but guess what it is? It's because you want me to say, you want me to be a ventriloquist dummy. That's what it is. You want me to say exactly what you want me to parrot, but somehow keep my uniqueness, keep my individuality. It's not going to work that way. So it's
No.
It humors me, man.
Clearly, where you said where did this all start from? I think that was definitely a social media influence because even before that, we had like talk shows. I think that the equivalent to social media now was the talk shows of the 90s and the early 2000s, where people would have these conversations. You've actually shared on your platform where like the old UK shows that black people speak on, and those were the times where people just had very distinct opinions. Like had really like people related in certain ways, but people had, oh no, if you're blue, green, orange, yellow, remember that term? You're still human. But then someone else will be more pro-black. We had that diversity of thought, but now it's like like everything that's been said on Twitter should be reiterated over and over again. So yeah, that's what I've noticed. It definitely did start in this era where we have to be part of this agenda.
Social media has definitely heightened people's emotions, and that's another thing as well that's actually quite interesting. And it kind of goes back to my question about I don't think you can answer this one, or if you can, do people in like in Africa, third world nations, because they have probably again, let's use the word simpler lifestyle. It's harder, but more of a less things. Are they more emotionally balanced because they have less things? Whereas we have so many things that it could be trivial, but social media and have all these little things, these gadgets and everything else that just hyper, we're on edge all the time. We're not seen to be able to be calm. That's why mental health is so crazy in the West in comparison, I think. So it's just like, do you see that as a reason why we're so much more emotional? Because we have all these receptor factors, social media, every 24/7, as opposed to some people who's like, it ain't like that. It's a bit more calm. It's not as 24/7. I don't know.
Yeah, I would say our priorities are effed up. Okay. You made the comparison between like let's say what Africans like what their issues are more overt. Like their issues are like, okay, we need running water flowing in this town, or like real shit.
Well, why won't they be more emotional about that? You see what I'm saying? This is another thing.
Right.
Why won't they be more emotional about real stuff? Because that would be.
You know why? I think I know. I won't say I know. It's like I can guess the principle behind it is that it's a tangible problem that we can fix if we have the resources for it. So we must lead to that. So what do we need to do to get those resources? Work for it, or fight for it, and it's there. But with us, it's more like these aren't tangible problems because it maybe comes off on and off. So when they say, oh, the black community in America or the UK is dwindling and we don't know why, or people are dating now, it's like these are very long-term effects of something that's happened decades ago, or the black absentee fathers in the community. Is like those are problems, but it's like now we have to look at all these little details behind that, microaggression, all these little things. It's like, okay, the covert racism in the UK versus in America, that's like we are exhausted based on problems we can't really grab onto, so we make more noise for it. We're raising awareness.
I do, but you know what kills me? I'm gonna use two examples here. That's recent. The fuel crisis. That was like almost like a self-inflicted crisis, anyway. But people were pretty much. I think someone almost like got stabbed because they couldn't get fuel, and that's a tangible thing. Where it's like people needed to get fuel, or some people were getting too much fuel. People going crazy. This hyper emotional. People queuing up. I remember I couldn't get fuel really for like days because of the crisis, which again self-inflicted. I'll grant you that. But people going crazy. Pandemic, no toilet paper. People screaming over people. People are piling on people. They were trying to get actual tangible outputs. And this are like, for me, toilet paper, food, that seems like a more of a real issue. So I'm like, how is it not possible that they don't have like clean running water? The governments are doing this to them. I'm like, I just think you guys should be the most emotional, the most like fiery characters, because like this can't go on because my families aren't going to eat if this don't happen. I don't know. For me, it just seems, how can you not be more fiery over there as to over here? We should be more placid. We should be placated over here, surely.
Yeah, if we can come up with so many reasons, but you know what I mean. Well, it's like
you should be crazy over there. You should be like, yo, we've got this. No. We should. I should experience or see revolutions, because they have so much resources and so much potential. It's like, get rid of this, whoever guy's in charge. Let's start this. Let's have a real revolution. You know what I mean? I'm just like, bro, I don't know what it is.
Yeah, you know what? I would say systems in Africa where maybe there is an economy that's stable enough. To them, it's like if we do try and riot and cause havoc, then we already lose what we have to hold on to. Compared to in America, where it's like people want to, riot, burn down stores for change, but something's gonna happen where you can recover all that within days. Like in terms of like, I'm just using these examples, almost like a stigma. Like okay, chaos because of protests, like breaking down buildings, burning places down. To them, I think in people's psyche that will never go away. As in, we'll always have establishments, we'll always have food in this Western society, so we will just lash out because we can. While in Africa, if burning down things, there are certain places that happens, but people know once they reach that point, it's over. Like shit is like whatever movement they had is meant to change things. Like when Americans were rioting for change, it should have ended America and started a new country. That's how it happens in Africa in like the Arab Spring. They want to revitalize whatever and even change the name of a country. Congo used to be Zaire, or Zimbabwe used to be, I forgot the other name. Yeah, see, so it's like when they create those changes, it's like they literally want to strip off everything. While in America and UK, when we do all these little tantrums, we really don't actually want change. We want change to an extent, but it's like we don't want to even change the system. We want the white man to still be the white man rather than take him down a notch, That's how I see it.
No, it's fair points.
Yeah,
no, I do.
Like we want the enemy to be known. Like in our heads is like the white supremacy is white supremacy. We don't want to take over white supremacy. We just want to continue to complain about what the winners are doing. Rather in Africa, it's like we're gonna kill the winner. You know what I mean? If we want change, so it's different. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's more of a feminine trait than I suppose. We seem to love indulging our what's the word, complaints. We love to be in the complaint. It's like, now there has to be a plan, there has to be an execution, and there has to be a realization that there's a next step into this. But no, we don't seem to operate like that. And but I will say this though, and this is what I hate when black women are saying this, but because we're not as emotional, maybe I see their point. Do you know when they say black men aren't protecting us, black men aren't doing this, black men aren't doing that, black men aren't on the front lines of these movements, and I'm like, I keep saying, well, we're men, we're not supposed to be, you know what I mean, marching. We're supposed to be planning. But you see what I mean? That's another thing we have to contend with. Where
yes,
our women think because we're not doing those things that they think we should do in an emotional way, we aren't actually doing our job as men.
We're not. We're not. This is why I like I'm been making these videos a lot. Is because it's like we're not really. To me, it's like in my opinion, I don't think there's really anything to change rather than individual improvements in your lifestyle and whatever when it comes to black men in the West. But if we truly want change, then we do it the right way. At least give me an idea. I might follow with you. You know what I mean? So if there's like an organization of black people, like, okay, we want the criminality to change in the UK where we're not targeted. I want to see the bullet point things you want to do. But if you want to virtual signal and block roads and, you know, buy t-shirts and send donation signs, like, yes, that's good, but where's the major action? Where's the real bread going towards? You know, if it's not real, then that to me is not masculine. It's not like a real war against inequality. You're just playing the same game a lot of these other movements are doing. You know, Extinction Rebellion, to me, is the most useless movement I've ever seen. That's what BLM's starting to look like, because there was a purpose, but to me, it's starting to look like something that's never going to change, because they're going to wait on for the next hashtag George Floyd to happen. It's going to happen in the next, year from now, like a big one with a camera recording, same as Trayvon Martin, same as Michael Brown. I followed individual hashtags. It's the same thing. So are they trying to fix anything? No. That's what I'm seeing.
No, they just want, like you said, they want, again, the white man to fix it. I mean, let me give an example of Insulate Britain and how they want basically the government to do this. They want the government to make these changes. And I remember this guy, I forgot his name, who represents Insulate Britain. And the question was asked to him, oh, have you insulated your home? I was like, well, that's not the point. And he was trying to divert from the point. And he was basically a hypocrite because he hadn't even done the thing that he's actually trying to force people, stop people getting to work for, basically shut down the place for doing. I'm just like, that's sometimes how I think we look like with our movements. We are, not only are our movements counterproductive, but we become hypocritical because we aren't actually in a position a lot of time to actually preach to anybody about sometimes equality and treating people right way. Look at our communities sometimes. We're like, you're not seeing the stabbings. And when we try and bring this stuff up, not to say what you're saying is not true, we should be concerned about racism and stuff like that, but just to say, look, at least get our shit in order. Then we can go and say these things, and then we can have a proper plan. But we just seem to be also backwards with it. And again, like I said beforehand, it's because we've been placated and because marching seems to do the trick for us.
Mate,
bail us out.
What's funny is this is so annoying, but I'll watch these big questions with certain politicians there, and then the big advocates who speak on these things, and they don't seem to have solutions. They don't. Okay, when we talk on the knife crime situation in London and maybe Birmingham, they don't offer solutions to these politicians. They want the politicians to figure it out themselves, but we're going to rant here and say, you need to stop racially profiling us, even though we're stabbing and killing our own. You're not helping us. You're not. It's like, okay, police are figuring out certain things to do. If racial profiling is wrong, okay, what's the other solution? We want to work with the community. Well, we can't trust the police. Like, well, we want to fix it. We want to stop you from dying. Like, it's not us killing you. You're killing each other. You know? You don't offer an alternative.
No, they don't. And this is actually part of the trick. This is actually part of the trick, which a lot of times it happens with us. And it's been working for ages, where because we don't offer solutions, it means that guess what? No one can say to us, well, you told us to do this. So part of the trick is to say, well, you have to find the solutions. Who did I follow on Twitter? I forgot her name. But they were basically saying, well, I shouldn't have to explain racism to white people. You're the one
My
who
God.
therefore you must need to educate yourselves on racism. You need to that's the mentality that you hear, where they don't want to basically tell people, okay, you have a problem. Tell me how to solve your problem. I want to help. No, you're the one who's a problem. You must figure it out. It's like a woman, isn't it? What's wrong? I don't know. You know something wrong with her, but she won't tell you.
Indecisive.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
What? That's it.
Yeah.
That's just in itself.
So it ties up to what I'm even trying to say here is that yes, black men are feminine in the West. Can we accept that? Yes, because I'm not putting down women, but women do know if they want to be in a relationship, they want a man who leads in a relationship. They can be indecisive, so at least someone who can maybe take more logical approach to things. But if the men of the community are doing the same thing when it comes to social movements like this, they are not offering solutions like, okay, maybe our young boys need to like stay off the streets. We need to do things ourselves before we rely on the government, because the government can only do as much as they can, rather than reinforcing the idea that, oh, the white man is still keeping us down, making us kill each other. No, there's an issue. We need to fix ourselves. But the white man is not there to figure it out for us. So we can go on and on about this, but yeah, this is definitely sparking an idea. Like I keep on placing terms like this in front, like to throw out a narrative here, because I think that we've pampered black men for so long. I'm a black man. I'm saying it. We are pampering black men for so long. We're protecting black men. Why are we protecting black men? Men are the ones who are meant to be the shells of the community. We're meant to protect the community, but now we're offering ourselves as the weak that need to be coddled. I'm not having that. I'm not going to be a part of that. So yeah, that's what I would cover. Do you want anything else to add on to before I close up? This was gold.
No, excellent conversation. Honestly, as always. There was one thing I was going to just try. I can't remember off the top of my head. I wanted to just ask if you know this. Has there been a movement that has yielded results based on, I suppose, black men or even black people having a more logical, goal-orientated approach as opposed to the emotional outburst? Has there been a movement that we could say this is proof that this has worked, or something that's tangibly resulted in, I don't know, increasing jobs or low crime rate? Is there anything like that which we have a proof of concept? Because one of the things I always like to, where's the proof? Where's the stats? Where's the actual facts? Have we had that?
No, I would say that in the last 40 years, we haven't had a movement that we had back in the 60s, 50s that changed a lot in the magnitude. We haven't had that. I would say the only group of maybe black people who want to change the narrative and basically change the trajectory of the community are those who may be labeled more conservative. Like someone like Thomas Sowell has written literature explaining a lot of the issues and where we can fix them, but the people don't want to listen. The people see him as a sellout. So a lot of the time now is about production. What we've done is we've reached a point from like the 1950s, 1960s where we were looked down on, second-class citizens, yada yada, and then we've changed that where we want to make sure we are in the same position as every other group of men and women, but it's up to us now. We're at a stage where it's based on our production. Even if we have to work 2 times harder than other people, it's up to us now to reach that position. No one else has the shackles on us. It may be to an extent in other certain places, but we have to accept that, yeah, we're going to work hard for this. So you're saying, is there any movement like that? No. But even when you see a movement like that,
some sort of little, because movement we think grandioso, but I think something a little bit where I can say, yes, these are a group of men who said, no, we're going to book the trend. This is what we're about. And this is the proof. I just want to almost like slam it in people's faces.
They are considered conservatives, or they're considered more right-leaning because they don't want to complain anymore. They just want to get some stuff done. That's how I see it. Like when I think of, let's say, politics, if I look at American politics, for example, the Democrats don't really want to change anything. They just want to rant, even when they were in power. So the black people in the Democratic, party weren't really fighting for a difference now. It was more, let's just point out the issues that affected us since slavery. And it's like, okay, are you creating jobs, or are you just gonna go back to how black men were in the bottom? It's like, okay, in the UK, for example, when I look at we have to think of the politicians first, because they're the ones who kind of have to lead on to that, accept these movements. But the liberals aren't doing much either. They're not really, when I think of David Lammy, what is he doing for Tottenham? What has he changed the trajectory of the young people who are in poverty? Has he come up with programs to support that? I've read into it, and to me, it's the most profound thing he's done was talk on the 2011 riots. And since then, win loss rush debate. But when it comes to his own, the community he's meant to represent, he's not finding ways to improve it at all. I think
he would argue the Conservatives have been in power since, when is it?
2010, 2011,
yeah. Well, Hong Kong, 2010. That's what he would argue, isn't it? This is the legacy of Conservatives.
No, but then the intervention, I would say, is that as an MP, you represent your constituents. So are you setting pace, even when he was in power, are you setting pace in changing certain things? Because as an MP, you're responsible. There's no conservative in your position. Yeah, you may represent the party in other places, but you should not be complaining. I read into Kemi Badenoch's work in Norton something, like the county she represents, and she's done a lot of work, and it's like visible, and she's even though it's a predominantly white county, if she represented somewhere in London where it's predominantly black, you would see a change. So it's like when I see specific people in power that are doing certain things, you can tell what type of mindset they have, and it's not liberal. So that's why I think the way I think now. That's why I may represent a certain political mindset, because that I'm not a sellout. Like, you've heard me speak, that I refer to improving the group more. So if I'm garnering my attention to that political viewpoint, of course I don't want to represent them, but I know the changes they're making, in particular when it comes to black people and how we look. But when they speak on things, they sound like sellouts. But when they actually do shit, things are getting done. I'm happy to see that. That's the difference. But the movement in general, no, you won't. Raising awareness to change, no. We haven't had that in a while.
And that's the thing. Unfortunately, unless we don't shout loud about these things, people, it's just not going to be the case of we're just not going to be respected like that. So, and I respect people who do the work. Unfortunately, it's talkers who seem to be the ones who, get the places. Even like in politics, like Boris Johnson, I don't know what he did for London, all that kind of stuff, but I don't rate the man. I think he's a slippery character. Same like Michael Gove and a lot of people in the Conservatives.
Yes. I would say that Boris still acts like the mouthpiece rather than someone who is proactively thinking of a strategy. He just relies on the people around him to figure something out. And that's why a lot of blame is placed on specific MPs to do things when Boris should be his grand scheme to change things, I agree with that, with what you're saying. Another is like, I want to bring back this figure one more time, like Dr. Umar Johnson. He was all talk, but then he was like, okay, my action is to create a school. But as you can see, that's not going anywhere. So that's an example of someone who may have had a different approach, like actually started something, because in my mind, if that actually worked out, that is someone who's been proactive. Okay, he's bringing a lot of young boys who didn't have the support system, who didn't have father figures in their homes, mothers who are struggling, working 2 hour, two different jobs, can put their kids into this school that he's funded, and that could change a whole generation one at a time, and then build another school. It's like, that's the mindset that he put into a lot of his first followers. But when no one saw a change or any improvement, it's just the mouthpiece that he's become. People gave up, but majority of people now just like to listen.
Yeah. I agree. And we become a people in the West of talkers and not doers. So someone called this the drum major instinct, in which we want to be seen as the head of a movement, But we don't want to do the grunt work. The thing is, a movement can only operate by people doing the grunt work, the people who don't get the praise. But everyone wants to praise the glory as being the face of, the head of. They want to be that next, let's just say it, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the next Malcolm X, the people, you know what I mean? The ones who are on speaking arrangements, the ones who gets the glory, they get the limelight. But the people who actually are the ones who make change, are the people who do the work. And that's the problem. We want to have the glory, but no one wants to do the work. And this is why when we want white people to bail us out, because we don't want to do the work, because the work is hard to change our communities. You know what? It's going to require work. You're going to have to fix yourself up, fix up, look sharp. We don't want to do the work, but we want all the praise and glory. And we want to be the head of these movements. That's how it is. That's what it seems to me.
Yes. And was that in reference to Dizzy Rascal's "Fix Up, Look Sharp"? That's a good bar.
You caught it.
Yeah. No, that's a good. When they spit good lines like that, then I'm like, yes, profound. You know, so no, I definitely 100% get it. So I've let out the what's the phrase? I've removed the curtains from my eyes. I see the truth too as it is, and a lot of these figures don't do much than just talk. And once people wake up to that, you know, I think we would see a change, but the masses are very much hooked. And that won't change. Just like in the churches, you know, people aren't, you know, acting on what is being preached, and so it just entertains people. And you know, that's what social media is. It's for entertainment, but people take it too far, and then start movements out of nothing. You know, like we have panels like this, but people just come up with movements and like, you know what, that's what we want, we need. So let's abort black babies. You know, that's that type of narrative comes from little conversations like this, and then people just feed into it. Yeah. So
do you know what? Honestly,
yeah.
I need to retract what I've just said there, because I'm going to talk about this next week.
Go on. Yeah.
Black Pound Day is a movement, a revolution, which it's hard to say what's. There's been receipts as to what's happening, but yeah, I want to talk about Black Pound Day. That's kind of a movement which is, I support it, and it's something I've been complaining about.
Yeah, I was good. Did you drop a stream, or is it scheduled on Black Pound Day?
It's scheduled on.
Yeah, I'll definitely tune in on that.
I want to talk about the whole pro-black faith versus work, so I might push that back because I like that topic as well. So yeah, but I've definitely dropped a stream, and it's upcoming for sure.
Yeah, I'll definitely tune in. Yeah. So I'm gonna close up soon. Yeah, thanks for joining us on the panel, White Matters. This was needed because I needed someone to engage with to get to this point, you know.
No. I hear what you're saying. Do you know when you have your own ideas, but when you can bounce off somebody, it just forges more talking points, and then you're like, okay, you can bring things out. So sometimes when I'm in my own streams, like, oh, I should have said this, and oh, I should have said that, and oh, I should have said this. I'm like, oh, but when you can engage, it comes out a lot, just so much like a nice conversation. So yeah,
Indeed.
always.
Indeed. Yeah, so yeah, thanks for joining us. And Raya, thank you for tuning in as well. They don't want to plant the corn yet. They don't want production. Thank you for welcome back for listening, and whoever else was listening in, and even the dislikers. Thank you for tuning in.
I didn't see that took me for a bit of a while, but I'm telling you.
Yeah, I left something in the description. I can't remember what I wrote, but it was meant to trigger some folks. But yeah, I got the message out there. So yeah, thanks for tuning in again. Why it matters. Everyone else for listening.
The Cash App. Where can I find you? Not Average Joe's podcast Cash App. Where can I find
it's on my platform on the description, but it's NYAJ podcast. So with the pound in front, NYAJ podcast.
Oh, 1 second.
Yeah,
can
thanks.
I find out you're about or something? Or
yeah, it's on the description and the about as well in any video.
Where is it? Why can't I find it in this video?
Not in this, sorry, on the other platform. But you know what? I'll drop it.
My bad.
I'll drop it here. Let me make it easy for you, bro. Sorry about that.
I'm a bit slow
Thank you
today.
so much, bro. Yeah, I'll be about. I'll definitely, you know, it encourages me to make more content, just like you. It's been good though. Thanks for listening, and we will be out. Hopefully for next weekend, I'll drop another stream as well, and tune into Why It Matters as well. I'll actually leave your link in the description below too, just because you contributed a lot. Thanks a lot. Yeah, have a good weekend, everyone. Have a blessed day. Good night.